Chapter 338. Wu Bin furrowed his brows slightly when faced with Peony's inquiry. Then he revealed a smile and said, "It's like this. According to the latest intelligence, some of our targets have the ability to spit out large doses of radiation for a short period of time. They like to live in radiation zones, so I specifically invited Mr. Long 7. Wu Bin extended his hand as he spoke. Long 7 was very cooperative. He stood up to greet the people present. His bearing and demeanor were first-rate. His natural and relaxed body language diluted the awkward atmosphere in the conference room. There should be applause here. The participants really did start clapping. Wu Bin invited Long 7 to sit down and continued, "Mr. Long 7 is a professional talent recommended by Northern Hope Corporation. He possesses the special ability to use radiation harmlessly. Northern Hope Corporation's vision is worthy of trust as the world's top provider of human resources solutions. I also believe in Mr. Long 7's professionalism. At the same time, please believe in our sincerity in cooperation and our ability to fulfill the contract." Luo Nen already had a rough judgment when he heard this. This team should have frequent dealings with ability users. Talking about special abilities was as natural as drinking water to them. They didn't pay much attention to Ink, a strange pet. Presumably, they were rich in experience and didn't find it strange. This saved them a lot of worry. Peony interlaced her 10 fingers. The back of her hand arched slightly to support her chin. She appeared to be even more focused. However, the crow feather that lightly scratched the side of her face revealed a bit of interest. Of course, no matter what position a beauty was in, she looked good. She also had the wonderful effect of dispelling the negative emotions of others. She smiled just like this. "The firm has no doubts about your company's strength and reputation. But out of professional considerations, all matters must be led by the firm during the investigation and target locking process. This point cannot be changed because of the team's composition, the target species, the environment, and other factors." Wu Bin immediately responded, "We won't go back on the matters emphasized in the agreement." Peony's gaze switched to Long 7's face. "The firm will not be responsible for any losses caused by the partners or team members who violate the terms of the agreement during the operation. We will withdraw from this project according to the agreement and demand compensation." Wu Bin confirmed, "No objections." Long 7 gazed at Peony from the side. 2 seconds passed before he laughed. "I provide specialized services. Miss Peony oversees the overall situation. The two don't contradict each other. I will certainly abide by the relevant provisions." Peony laughed as she sat up straight. She tossed the crow feather on the table. "Then I have nothing else to say." Wu Bin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A bold smile appeared on his face. "Since we're a team, it's best to communicate in time. Being able to point it out like Miss Peony can eliminate many problems." Although he said this, he wasn't willing to let Peony open her mouth again. He indicated that the personal introduction should quickly begin. Immediately, the team members introduced themselves one by one, as well as their positions in the team. Very soon, it was Peony and Long 7's turn. Draconic 7's appearance was rather noble, but he had a sense of community. He took the initiative to introduce himself. "Director Wu mentioned just now that he's mainly interested in my radiation decontamination ability. I won't talk about that. In addition, I've also done some research on firearms and exoskeleton operations." Peony suddenly interrupted him. "What kind of exoskeleton? Military? Police? Or a deep blue walker?" Long Chi smiled and replied, "Anything is fine." "Oh, sorry for my rudeness." Though she said this, Peony wasn't surprised in the slightest. She casually raised her hand, indicating that it was her turn. "As you can see, my special ability is to control birds to carry out wide-area reconnaissance. In addition, I can do some intelligence integration and analysis work. It seems like the team already has an intelligence officer?" Wu Bin immediately declared, "We will definitely cooperate well. Axel Thor is mainly in charge of communication and information sharing. He's a very good assistant." Intelligence Officer Axel Thor, who had just introduced himself, stood up once more and greeted Peony. Afterwards, he didn't sit down again. Instead, he followed Wu Bin's intentions and began to introduce the specific information of the operation project. This wasn't just a report to Peony and Draconic 7. The vast majority of the people in the conference room were elites of Trigate Security's operations department. However, they didn't have the authority to inspect certain key information. It was necessary to carry out a comprehensive explanation. The light in the room dimmed, and the projector turned on, projecting a different world inside. The light in the background was that of dusk. The setting sun shone at an angle, and the dark red soil of the desolate plains was folded layer upon layer. It absorbed the multicolored light, like a surging wave of blood that froze in an instant. It piled up into an uncountable number of hills and ravines, extending all the way to the ends of the world. The wilderness. Wave peaks and hills? Draconic 7 muttered. He seemed to be talking to himself, but he also seemed to be deliberately communicating with Peony. Peony turned her head to look at him. You're very familiar with the surrounding terrain of Xia City. I run around once in a while. In the time it took to say 2 or 3 sentences, the aerial image continued to push forward. At the end of the monotonous horizon, the altitude gradually dropped, revealing a blood-colored hilly region. This caused Draconic 7's words to be filled with foresight. The camera gradually locked onto the target. In the skies above the hilly region, countless black dots circled in the dusky sky. They were like a weary flock of birds returning to their nests. But when the camera zoomed in and locked onto an individual, Luo Nan's eyelids twitched even though he was far away in Acumen College's campus. The thing that appeared in the center of the projection wasn't a bird at all. It was more like an ugly and deformed bat. This was a mutant without a doubt. The body of this bat wasn't large. Its wingspan was around 30 centimeters. Its head was like that of a small canine. Its ears were very large, its teeth were sharp, and its eyes were blood red. Its entire body was covered in grayish-black fur. The most recognizable part was the 4 claws that stretched out from the edge of the membrane-like wings. From a different angle, one could see that this monster had all 4 limbs, and its muscles were knotted together. It looked extremely powerful, and its membrane wings were more like appendages. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew's explanation intervened in time. The wing-hand bloodbat is a gregarious mutant. It normally feeds on the blood of large mammals. When it sucks blood, it injects paralysis toxins and various viruses. If the dose is high enough, it can be fatal. Its diet includes humans as well as its own kind. A large population can be classified as a Class 2 threat. In the wilderness, vagrants generally call it pubula. It's an onomatopoeia, an imitation of the sound it makes when it flaps its wings. He turned on the sound effects as he spoke. The sound of the scene was reproduced with extremely high fidelity. Hundreds and thousands of strange bats circled and danced in the air, emitting a strange sound. It was like a large number of flags fluttering in the wind. It was a continuous stretch. Axel Thew cut out an anatomical diagram at the edge of the projection. Everyone, please take note. The wing-hand bloodbat doesn't have a vocal organ. In its normal state, it doesn't make a sound when it flies or eats. It's a terrifying assassin of the night. It only makes a similar sound when it's courting a mate. Of course, they are extremely irritable and sensitive during these times. Their destructive power is at its strongest. As he spoke, a diagram popped up below the anatomical diagram. It seemed like this person's PPT skill was maxed out. The wing-hand bloodbat is in heat. When it sucks blood, it injects a virus that is highly contagious and lethal. There have been many records of small to medium-sized vagrant tribes being wiped out by the virus. For example, this place is the ruins of a vagrant tribe that perished. The camera's perspective shifted. One could see that there were some empty holes on top of the hill. They were quite regular, serving as doors and windows. These were the crypts, commonly used by vagrant tribes. They were relatively sturdy and had strong concealment. They could avoid the majority of predators in the wilderness. The game 10 Days in the Wilderness had scenes of crypt battles. Even Luo Nan was no stranger to it. It was just that what appeared on the screen was deathly stillness. As the camera switched, A few dried-up corpses appeared amidst the rubble and weeds. Practically every single person's body was curled up. It was easy to imagine that they had experienced a bitter struggle. The conference room was silent. Intelligence Officer Axel Few continued to explain, "We need to pay special attention to this. According to the latest research, certain mutant wing-hand bloodbats have evolved to have limited control over the virus. I don't know if everyone understands what I'm saying." Long 7 interrupted and asked, "Are you saying that the wing-hand bloodbat can control whether or not the target is infected?" It's the degree of infection. It might even include the probability of mutation. According to the experimental data of a certain research organization, a single wing-hand bloodbat has successfully caused 2 experimental bodies to undergo mutation. Human experiments? Intelligence Officer Axel Few swept a glance at his boss and shrugged. The data doesn't show this. He didn't continue on this topic. He just patiently introduced all sorts of habits of the wing-hand bloodbat, including the latest results of various research organizations. He didn't even leave out the mutant subspecies. Inevitably, he also explained the routes and areas where this mutant could infiltrate Xia City one by one. Looking back, they spent a total of over 2 hours. Acumen College's morning classes had ended by this time. Trigate Corporation probably felt that it was too long and tedious. All sorts of drinks and fruits were placed on the table. Even Ink was given a cup of water. They waited until the end with great difficulty, but a rather impressive display board appeared on the side of the projection. There were many dark silhouettes and silhouettes on it. They were roughly divided into 4 layers. The top layer was a bit sparse, but the bottom layer was densely packed. There were at least 20 of them. The images of the wilderness and the flock of wing-hand bloodbats transformed into a mass of light and entered the first silhouette in the upper left corner. This was the tempo of the conference going on for 2 days. Long 7 couldn't help but shake his head. It's quite a large scale. Isn't it better to sound the red alert now? Peony's eyes and lips were smiling, but the meaning behind her words wasn't the same. She didn't expect a direct response from Wu Bin. She directly spoke to her pet. "Mr. Ink, have you woken up?" Ink, who had been a wooden statue for a long time, raised its eyelids. It really did sleep under Luo Nan's orders. It only left a strand of mental clairvoyance to observe its surroundings for Luo Nan to use. Otherwise, with its lively and restless nature, it would have caused a ruckus long ago. "We've already prepared lunch. I asked the 2 experts to honor us." Wu Bin had no choice but to open his mouth to explain as he invited, "The wing-hand bloodbats are exceptions." Peony cast a sidelong glance. 3 exceptions? And they're still called exceptions? There were 4 layers of silhouettes on the display board. The topmost layer had a total of 3, including the wing-hand bloodbats. The second layer had 5. The third and fourth layers each had 8. There were a total of 24. There was no need to talk about exceptions. Just the fact that 24 mutants had slaughtered their way into Xia City was one of the most serious public safety incidents in the last 30 years. Wu Bin continued to beat around the bush. The threat of these targets decreases in descending order from the top to the bottom. For this reason, we designed milestones and stage bonuses. The topmost 3 have special prizes. Peony looked straight at Wu Bin's face. "It's great to talk about money, but the government and military rarely engage in this sort of targeted search, right? This way we can increase efficiency. It saves quite a bit of effort. Mr. Long 7, what do you think?" Long 7 crossed his arms over his chest and made an action that wasn't very noble. The level of modern technology is really changing with each passing day. Peony pressed down on the goblet on the table and gave it a slight spin. The blue foam of the drink hung on the wall and spun. She then raised her glass and indicated to Long 7, "Cheers to the future of the Earth." Chapter 339. It was the turn of autumn and winter. The night increased and the sun shrunk. Half of the afternoon club time had yet to pass, but the sunlight that poured into Acumen College was dyed with a layer of blood. It faintly overlapped with the wilderness in the projection. Luo Nen rode the campus trolley to the auditorium. His eyes were half closed, looking like he was sleeping yet not. Lei didn't care. He had to split his attention. He had been like this all day. But his wristband vibrated for a dozen or so seconds. He could hear the buzzing vibrations from the side, but this bro still didn't respond. What was the meaning of this? In the end, Lei couldn't help but give Luo Nan a push. Someone's calling you. Luo Nan went, ah, and finally came back to his senses. He looked at the contact and picked up the phone. Hello, third brother. The caller was Hu Huayin. The call connected with great difficulty. He asked right away, Nanster, where are you? I'm heading to Gear. Hurry up and get over here. The construction team is wrapping up their work today. The underground facilities can be considered to have been repaired. They called Old Xie and Old Xie called me. He asked you to come and check it out. Check it out. Luonan felt that it was quite comical. Ever since Gear was damaged by fire last week, it had become a gathering place for all sorts of immortals. There were always 5 or 6 or 7 spies. Check it out for what? Check the amount of intelligence collected by each clan? Of course, this matter had nothing to do with Xie Junping and Hu Huayin. In the end, Luo Nan was too high profile back then. He also displayed extraordinary importance to Gear. Even if there was nothing special about Gear, it would still attract a few glances. Plus, this place wasn't that simple. Luo Nan's mood swayed for a moment before he responded in a low voice. I understand. I'll be there in a moment. Luo Nan hung up and leaned back. He unconsciously furrowed his brows. Lei turned his head to look. You're not having a meeting anymore? Luo Nan grunted. I'm not having a meeting. It's too long. I don't really understand. Actually, his words were a bit insincere. Lei didn't hear it. He was just curious. What did they talk about? It's about mutations, genetic pollution, transmission probabilities, and things like that. Luo Nan used telepathy to inform Peony as he spoke to Lei. He only retained a bit of telepathy to give Inca rain. His attention was completely withdrawn. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. The meeting had already been going for 7 hours. Luo Nan withdrew, and he subconsciously let out a breath of relief. As time went on, the meeting became more and more involved in various professional discussions. The relevant professional knowledge was too obscure and profound for a high school student. Sometimes, it was like listening to a book from heaven. Forcefully trying to understand it was extremely taxing on the brain, and there were also inaccurate problems. If that was the case, then it would be better to directly listen to the results. The hidden indigo trading firm had arranged it this way. Luonan finally understood Zhang Yingying's good intentions. If he followed the pattern of today's meeting, then he wouldn't need to do anything for the next few days. But Luonan had to admit that this long meeting really broadened his horizons. The professional knowledge regarding the mutants and the wilderness, as well as the relevant intelligence analysis, were mostly unheard of and unseen. It was all thanks to the remedial classes that he had taken during this period of time. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even be able to grasp the relevant basic knowledge. Recently, you have to be careful of cats, dogs, birds, bats, and mice. Don't get hurt by them. By the way, there's a recycling stratum in the Twin River District. Pay attention to the people. What's wrong? Virus infection? A plague outbreak? It's not that serious. It doesn't affect normal people too much. It's mainly us. Luo Nan recalled the knowledge he obtained from the meeting and gave Lei a warning. Mutants spread the virus. The stronger and stronger the infected person, the greater the probability of a mutation occurring. Ability users were the most dangerous group. Just like the storm caused by the splitting and spreading of the human-faced arachnid some time ago. Aside from a few unlucky bastards who were close by, normal people practically escaped unscathed. But many ability users of the Xia City branch were controlled by the parasite, causing a huge mess. It was an infection on the mental plane. And for mutants like the wing-hand bat, their toxins and viruses were transmitted through the blood. Enhanced fleshly body users were more likely to attract flies. Lei's teeth ached from hearing this. He grimaced in pain and couldn't help but ask for a few details. Luo Nan acted as the translator. He told Luo Nan the information he knew and selected the ones that were directly related to himself. He only requested that Shui Lei not spread it further and that he remind his family to be careful. It was fine for them to immediately contact the society if any symptoms occurred. Biohazard crisis, huh? Did the city hide it like this? If you didn't say it, there wouldn't have been any news at all. Oh right, is there a problem with you saying these things? I did sign a confidentiality agreement. Luo Nan laughed and waved his hand. The agreement clearly states that the hidden indigo firm and its shareholders have the right to know and follow up on relevant developments. They also have the right to notify relevant stakeholders at their discretion. But it shouldn't cause any social impact. Isn't that fine? Social impact. Shui Lei didn't quite understand. Don't go on the various authoritative media outlets. Rumors don't reach a certain scale. This should be fine. Shui Lei let out a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. This agreement isn't worth a fart. It can be considered an unequal agreement. This clause was indeed extremely vague. If one were to force the words out, then the scope of knowledge could be expanded limitlessly. The Xia City branch was a shareholder of the hidden indigo firm. It was also a relevant public welfare party. And Shui Lei was also a member of the society. There was no problem in terms of legal principles. It was unknown how many times Peony had used this sort of method in the meeting to torment Wu Bin to the point where he wanted to cry but had no tears. This was another harvest of Luo Nan's today. Aside from professional knowledge, it also included methods and techniques for handling matters. Peony, Long 7, Director Wu Bin, Intelligence Officer Axel Tho, and the others had done a very good demonstration of this. Luo Nan spoke to Shui Lei, expressing his emotions. Swords and blades, killing silently. Just what are these people's brains made of? He truly admired Luo Nan. Luo Nan had experienced many things ever since he entered the inner world. He was always in the eye of the storm, and he was always the target of concentrated fire. There were many times when he needed to be at the forefront, contending against his opponents and negotiating with his teammates. There was no room for buffering. Reality proved that he wasn't a natural leader. To a certain degree, he was even lame. Ever since he was 10 years old, he spent the vast majority of his time in experiments, burying his head in research. His personality was introverted to the point of being autistic. He had no concept of certain things at all. He could only follow his feelings. There were many flaws in his actions, and there were many times when he was courting death. Fortunately, his luck was decent. He had the support of the power bestowed upon him by formatting theory. He also had the help of He Yueyin, Zhang Yingying, and even big shots like Ouyang Qin. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died a violent death on the streets. Instead, he had stumbled his way through life until now. As for today's meeting, Luo Nan stayed behind the scenes, a rare sight. Only a strand of his mind was tied to ink. He kept his mouth shut, only bringing his eyes and ears. His experience along the way was truly pure observation, and he truly benefited from it. This was especially true for Peony and Long 7. Peony had a strong ego, but she was very good at using her beauty to conceal herself. Long 7, on the other hand, was a needle hidden in silk. His sharp and arrogant aura was hidden under his confident and noble words and actions. The two would sometimes oppose each other with equal harshness. Sometimes they would cooperate closely. Even a seasoned character like Wu Bin was brought into the rhythm of the entire meeting. The title of team leader had long since ceased to exist in name. The attraction of this sort of scene was much stronger than the dry classroom teaching. Peony and Long 7 were both in their 20s, but their reserves of knowledge, their behavior, their words, and even their personalities made Luo Nan feel that it was wonderful. He was very envious, and perhaps even a bit inferior. There was a difference of 6 or 7 years in age. Was the difference that big? Would he be able to reach this level if he trained for another 6 or 7 years? All right, it seemed like there was a glimmer of hope. Another call came in just as Luo Nan was describing the situation in the meeting to Shui Lei. This time, the call came from a different channel. It was a vibration from the Hexa ear. It was Zhang Yingying. After the call connected, this sister excitedly cut to the chase and asked, "Did you shock them?" Luo Nan sighed from the bottom of his heart. Your firm is full of elites. That peony is really amazing. She seems to be from our school? Hey, you jumped into the sea to catch lobsters. Now you're being modest? Don't just praise others. What about you? What else can I do? I was just pretending to be a crow there. Crow my ass. I think you're the one who's lost your mind. Bro, you're the core of this project, okay? It doesn't matter if they're elites or not. If you don't say anything, are they playing hide and seek in Xia City? Zhang Yingying's mood drifted erratically. She had been laughing and joking earlier, but now she was resentful that Luo Nan didn't live up to her expectations. The firm outsourced this project to you because of your mental sensing ability. All the work revolved around you. If our firm wants to finish the work, we might as well throw the money into the sea. At least we can hear the sound of it. Luo Nan didn't know how to respond. This was different from their previous bickering. Zhang Yingying was completely standing on his side. She had said everything that needed to be said. It would be a bit rude for him to refute her. He was silent for quite a while, but Zhang Yingying let out a sigh. She slowed down first. I'm not blaming you. I just feel that this opportunity is very good. It's more or less tailor-made for you. You handled things like a game. You can't treat the invasion of mutants as child's play. Describe. I'm just describing, okay? Haven't you noticed? Your biggest problem is that your heartstrings are too taut. Isn't it just searching for mutants? With your mental sensing ability, you're pretty much the only one in Xia City. Aside from the boss and the president, no one can do it better than you. This is your profession, your domain. You're the authority there. If you don't put on airs now, when will you? Oh my God. Luo Nan's silence spoke volumes. Zhang Yingying couldn't help but look up at the sky and let out a long sigh. You were at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City. Your performance was pretty awesome. You blocked people until they went crazy. You tricked people until they vomited blood. You killed people until they were completely annihilated. You were freaking godlike back then. It's only been a few days. How come you're shrinking more and more? I'm not shrinking. Luo Nan wanted to clear his name. You're an old man, but you can't keep it up all day long. Is your brain short of blood? Zhang Yingying's mouth was like a machine gun. She suddenly fired shots. Relax. Relax your mind. What are you nervous about? Are you afraid of losing face? Don't talk about your authority. Even if you're a bit flawed, you don't even show your face. So what if you're wrong? That crow is called ink, right? It's just a mask. With it blocking the front, no one knows who you are. You can laugh, you can curse, you can cry, and you can make a fuss. As long as you don't tell them, who will know? Chapter 340. Zhang Yingying stuttered a bit when Luo Nan really asked. She had spoken with a wave of emotion in an attempt to arouse Luo Nan's emotions. She didn't pay attention to what came before and after. She never expected that Luo Nan would be numb to the extreme. He even had the leisure to ask a question. Zhang Yingying had no choice but to make up a story on the spot. People wear masks. They have an extra layer of protection. With protection, it's easier to let go. Isn't there a school of performance that lets people wear masks on stage? That way, the expression of the body is more important. You don't need to worry about your face or your appearance. The audience will naturally imagine things. Isn't it said that imagination is more perfect than reality? Zhang Yingying's logic was already a complete mess when she spoke to this point. Even she had to cover her face. But she never expected that Luo Nan would really be led into the ditch by her. So you're saying that this is a performance and I'm going to manage a new image? This will reduce the pressure? The power of his imagination had exploded. Zhang Yingying's collapsed logic was inadvertently salvaged by Luo Nan. She immediately seized the opportunity and fiercely nodded from the other side. Yeah. Do you see those trolls online? Many of them have high incomes and high education levels. Normally they appear virtuous in front of others. But when they go online, they create sock puppets everywhere. Their mouths are full of shit. This is their way of venting and relieving pressure. Think about it. This is human instinct. Your behavior online is certainly different from your own personality. Luo Nan seriously recalled his online life. Then he answered, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Zhang Yingying took a deep breath. Then she spat out word by word. She gnashed her teeth. Then learn. Learn how others vent. Learn how to let go. Otherwise, you'll collapse sooner or later if you keep being this nervous. You don't need to think about anything else. In the entire firm, only the boss and I know your identity. Even Peony doesn't know. Of course she doesn't know. She's a newcomer? A newcomer? What does she do in your firm? What else can she do? The boss just discovered her recently. He hasn't arranged any specific tasks yet. It just so happens that there's this project. Let her cooperate for a bit. Luo Nin felt as if his heart had been stabbed with a knife. Not only did he not relax, he became depressed. Newcomers are this amazing. What did she do before? Zhang Yingying was getting impatient. That's because the boss has a good eye. He seems to have been observing for a while and only recently recruited him. She's not from the society, nor is she from the church. She has nothing to do with the military. God knows where she came from. She's so mysterious. Oh right, don't let her scare you. She's just an assistant and a messenger. The real decision-maker is you. Luo Nen really wanted to say, you wouldn't think this way if you were participating. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong when the words reached his mouth. It was the same topic, but Zhang Yingying's emotions were much more intense than last Sunday. She was obviously not calm. As soon as this thought arose, the words that came out of his mouth also changed. You don't like this peony too much? Zhang Yingying fell silent. Luo Nan recalled Zhang Yingying's attitude and suddenly realized, you can't be fighting for favor. Jealous of a newcomer? Go to hell. Zhang Yingying was really angry and hung up the call. Luo Nan grunted, but his judgment became firmer. He could judge from Zhang Yingying's character and words that she should have a very special position in the hidden indigo firm. She was doted on by Her Majesty Empress Wu. And the newcomer peony had suddenly appeared. Her conduct was very brilliant, and her abilities were very strong. She probably gave Zhang Yingying a sense of crisis. These thoughts were very subtle. Perhaps Zhang Yingying herself didn't even realize it, but Luo Nan had rashly pointed it out. Honestly speaking, this was very rude. Hanging up the call was a light punishment. It was good enough that she didn't blacklist him. Luo Nan scratched his head. He began to have a headache about how to apologize to Zhang Yingying. But in the end, he wasn't someone who could speak well. In the end, he could only leave a message on the psychic wave network. I misspoke. I'm sorry. Also, thank you. I understand. Luo Nan assessed himself. The first few words were very clumsy, but they were very sincere. But the last few words had a fake meaning. Understand? The reasoning was clear, but his thoughts were far from clear on how to do it. Most of the time, Luo Nen felt that doing these things didn't have much meaning. Relax? Would relaxing make those enemies who were eyeing him like tigers let go? Would it make his pursuits materialize? If he had the time to mull over this matter, it would be better to calm his heart and do a few more exercises. Suddenly, someone in the car let out a low cry. A muffled bang followed. Something smashed heavily against the car window. This brought about a new, even louder cry. Everyone in the car turned their heads to look. Most of the people in the car were habitually immersed in the internet. They didn't know what was going on outside the window. A guy wearing a baseball cap had already pulled open the window and was cursing into the distance. He even gave a middle finger, stinky feet. If you lose another 0-3, I'll kick your balls. Luo Nan saw clearly that a tram was passing through an open-air stadium. A player who was training lost control of his feet and let a football smash against the car window. This was a small matter, but a portion of the students in the car found a common topic. Someone said to the guy wearing the baseball cap, the Pathfinder team's level this year is insane. They can even lose 0-3 to Yunsheng. Lucky for them, they even found Clark. Clark, that one-man race. He only knows how to run 100 meters along the sidelines. He wants to take the opportunity to practice track and field. How much transfer fee did the track and field club give him? Hey, he ran almost 20 kilometers for the entire game. If you can do it, why don't you go up? Go up and weed? After one lap, the turf will be fine, but his ankle will be broken. That's right. Lando Field is too trashy. It doesn't match the school's position at all. We should find a more responsible sponsor. Is there anyone who wants to sign with me? The atmosphere in the car grew more and more lively. Many people who had been silent the entire way broke their silence at this time. They all participated in the discussion of the game. Some students had already signed on the school's message board. Some took the opportunity to collect the contact numbers of female students. They gained quite a lot. Luonen didn't care about this at first. He raised his eyes and wanted to return to his own mental world. But at this time he saw Shuelei. He was also exchanging contact numbers with someone. They were discussing topics related to Clark's level. Luonan was inexplicably horrified. You know that guy? Of course I know. Clark? Kembo, the sports star of the school. He's a lightning bolt on the field. Rumor has it that he'll soon be selected for the City United team. I saw him compete at the beginning of school. His feet aren't as rough as others say. Shuelei responded as if it was a matter of course. Then he was horrified. You don't know? There are posters of him all over the school building right now. Luonen gaped. He looked at the chattering peers on the car, and his heart inexplicably sank. Several seconds later, he opened his mouth and asked, You know what a jungle owl is too? Of course. Our school's team plays 10 days in the wilderness. They lost miserably in the fall competition last month. You met someone from the jungle owl? Luonen muttered a few words in response. He turned his head, and his gaze passed through the window, unconsciously sweeping the campus. Shuelei was confused. What's wrong? Nothing. I just feel like I'm quite a homebody. Luonen laughed and didn't say anything more. Actually, he had lied once again. His evaluation of himself right now couldn't be described as a homebody. Shuelei concentrated on fighting. Peony was employed at the hidden indigo firm. The businesses they engaged in were a certain distance away from the world of normal people. But they didn't lose their perception of their surroundings. Luonan was far too boring in comparison. The trolley slowly arrived at the auditorium station. Students and passengers got on and off the trolley, and the topic of football had already vanished into thin air. It was as if nothing had happened. Luonan deliberately turned his head to look after getting off the trolley. Soon, his line of sight cut into the lively surroundings of the auditorium. He had been training his eyes orifice here a week ago. He was very familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. He had an idea of how many steps there were. The faces of the people who often moved around here were even a bit familiar to him. But that was all. After all, these were only his temporary observation targets. Deeper information was meaningless. Luonan had always understood things this way. But when he returned here today, he suddenly had a feeling. He was incompatible with this auditorium, with the surrounding plaza, and even with the entire campus. He was like this 2 months ago when he first entered the school. He was still like this now. This feeling wasn't too good. Luonan and Shuelei didn't waste any time. They directly entered the forest on the outskirts of the north bank. They made a few turns, and they arrived in front of Gear. The smell of smoke and fire from back then still lingered in this place. The construction team had already finished today's work by this time. They withdrew one after another, and the place became a bit more lively. Hu Huaying was already waiting in the lobby by the time Luonan arrived. Aside from him, the supervisor and the project manager were all here. It looked like they were treating today as an official inspection. Hu Huaying immediately introduced them to Luonan. Luonan nodded in greeting, but he didn't have any intentions of going deep into the conversation. He didn't immediately start the inspection either. Instead, he asked about Xie Junping. In the past, the young master of the Xie family was always at the forefront. Luonan really did miss him a bit when he was suddenly not around. With him here, they could chat a few dirty jokes. Wouldn't it be lively? Old Xie has been quite mysterious lately. It's probably because he's playing around with Sissy Du he's fasting and cultivating. Luo Nan accidentally heard the biggest joke in Xia City. He couldn't help but grin. Hu Huaying couldn't help but laugh as well. He wakes up at 6 in the morning and sleeps at 9 in the evening. He's persisted for 5 days. Oh, this isn't simple. But having a regular lifestyle is a good thing. It looks like he's persevering. The sissy Du that Hu Huaying mentioned was the former president of the Mystic Arts Research Society, Du Yong. Luo Nan had only met him once, so he wasn't too familiar with him. He just knew that Du Yong was a bit neurotic, but he was a decent person. They chatted idly for a bit before talking about gear. The project manager maintained his silence this entire time. The supervisor explained things to Luo Nan, but Luo Nan didn't really listen. It was nothing more than equipment installation and wiring, maintenance of various systems, and so on. Luo Nan grunted and grunted in response. He wasn't a professional, so he was entrusted to the supervisor according to the contract. However, it wasn't just the construction team. The supervisor's spy operation was also flying. Chapter 341. Luo Nan recognized that gear was currently attracting flies. In Acumen College, gear possessed a bit of a mysterious color. Even Xie Junping, a layman, had heard of names like the Ritual Society. He said that it was very suitable for carrying out mystic rituals. Then there was Luo Nan. It was hard for the professionals and experts to not feel that something was fishy. Actually, the Xia City branch had already made an assessment before the spies from all walks of life flooded in. They also said that the structure of the building was out of the ordinary. As for where the specific beauty lay, they were unable to come to a conclusion for a while. Because of this, He Yuan suggested that Luo Nan follow the principle of opening up is better than blocking, and let the spies in first. This way, they could not block everything and let the people from all walks of life speculate in their hearts. The matter of headquarters could serve as a warning. This was a smart method, but it was also a cowardly move. Luo Nan acted according to He Yuan and the others' instructions for a week. He turned a blind eye to the spies' actions on the surface, but in reality he was fretful in his heart. He could not stop the spies from all sides. He could only swallow his anger, but this did not mean that Luo Nan would treat the spies well. He already had a plan in mind. He let the supervising engineer do as he pleased and let him wander around the underground space. He did not express any opinions or emotions for over half an hour. The sky was already dark. The supervising engineer and the project manager were completely unable to grasp Luo Nan's pulse. They were unable to continue. Hu Huaying could roughly see Luo Nan's attitude at this time. She stood up and said a few words, sending the supervising engineer and the project manager away. After waiting for the outsiders to get lost, Hu Huaying asked, "Nanster, is this project not to your liking?" Luo Nan shook his head. "I don't understand professional matters, but there's nothing to be dissatisfied with. Let them continue to repair it. You know, this place is of great importance to me. It would be fine if nothing happened, but if something did happen, I need to take some precautions. When that happens, I won't be able to find outsiders." Old Xie said that this construction didn't restore the previous defense system. He wanted you to personally design it. You certainly don't lack professionals. Hu Huaying giggled, more or less flattering him. Last week at Ocean Sky Cloud City, he saw with his own eyes how the arrogance of the young master of the He family was suppressed. No, he wasn't suppressed. The flames were extinguished on their own. The group of people surrounding Luo Nan were all very mysterious. Perhaps they had great backgrounds. Especially He Donglo's older sister. According to their later understanding, she really was He Donglo's older sister. She had just retired from the special forces and returned home. Who would have thought that she and Luo Nan would play together? In the past, she was a bit puzzled by Xie Junping's attitude of trying to befriend Luo Nan in every possible way. But now, it was different. If he was given a chance, he would be 10 times more enthusiastic than Xie Junping. No matter what was said or done, the Xie family was still the #1 business group in Xia City. The Hu family was a level lower. If the Hu family worked hard to catch up, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hu family worked 10 times as hard as they could. At this point he had another thought. Old Xie didn't take good care of this person and instead went to play mysticism with Sissy Du. Was he relying on his relationship with him to stabilize, or was he trying to cater to his preferences in another direction? While he was thinking, they walked out of the fire escape and entered an open space. The light was dim. There were no lights to illuminate the place. A dark and gloomy sky hovered above their heads. Hu Huaying had been leaning here for several days now. She had a clear understanding of the architectural layout of gear and the maintenance process. She swept a glance and said, "The atrium here is a bit messy. It's hard to avoid some junk falling down during the repairs. We have to wait until the end to clean it up." Luo Nan grunted and raised his head to look up. Gear had 7 floors underground, 4 floors above ground, and a half-sealed rooftop. There were a total of 12 floors. Right now, they were on the lowest floor, looking at the ceiling of the atrium that was several dozen meters high. The architectural layout of gear was different from the vulgar. Only an architect or an insider like Luo Nan could understand how extraordinary it was. And the directions and angles were all different. However, for many people, the deepest impression they had of gear was the almost paranoid circular, stacked nested structure inside gear. And the most eye-catching of the series of structures was the perfectly straight atrium that connected all the floors before Luo Nan's eyes. The atrium of gear was different from most similar structures. The atrium of gear was located on the westernmost side of the building. Its edge was the outer wall of the building. Its height exceeded 50 meters, and the area it occupied wasn't small. If the lighting wasn't turned on and the angle of sunlight wasn't suitable, the pitch-black hole would be very frightening when looking down from above. Thinking about it in a crooked way, this was a good place to commit suicide. The outer wall of the atrium was surrounded by high-strength bulletproof glass, most likely to prevent similar situations from occurring. Every floor didn't leave a single gap. Jumping down really required skill. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium and raised his head to look at the sky. He could see the evening sky. The dusky sky was smeared with colorful paint. Aside from a sliver of the setting sun, the only thing that could be seen was the lights of the metropolis. The atrium had a diameter of 12 meters. It was already extremely spacious, but due to the height issue, it appeared rather slender no matter what angle one looked at it from. Only when one reached the bottom and personally experienced it would one know just how enormous this space was. Luo Nan smiled at Shuelei. "You can train here every day. The air isn't stuffy, right? When it rains, you can seal off the rooftop. It's more convenient than outside. I can give it a try." Shuelei grinned. He had been treating himself as a bodyguard ever since he entered gear. He didn't utter a single word and was extremely vigilant. He even operated the testing equipment provided by the society in secret, in case the construction team left behind some things that couldn't see the light of day. Right now, he was chatting with Luo Nan, and he finally relaxed. He imitated Luo Nan and raised his head to look at the sky. He suddenly had a strange thought. The rooftop ceiling platform should also be made of glass. It's like an astronomical telescope. Actually, it does have this function. Hu Huaying remembered that there was information about this in the information. She immediately showed off. It can be realized through an internal mounting module. The equipment room is on the 6th floor underground. Of course, special lenses are needed. The modification can be completed in an hour. Of course, this telescope can't be turned. It can only look at a small area above our heads. An hour? Shuelei was a bit moved. He really wanted to see it. Hu Huaying hurriedly added, "It can't be done now." This function was remodeled in 91. Not long after it was completed, the order club collapsed. The newly purchased equipment was completely sold off. They lost several $100,000 after depreciation. "Are you playing with me?" Shuelei rolled his eyes. Before he could say anything, Luo Nan sneered, drawing legs on a snake. Hu Huaying was stunned. Honestly speaking, she didn't understand what Luo Nan meant by these words. But it didn't affect her from echoing. "So, the snake's claws have been chopped off." Luo Nan didn't say anything. He looked up at the night sky above his head in silence. It was unknown where his thoughts drifted. Hu Huaying and Shuelei locked gazes. They were just about to speak when Luo Nan raised his arm to look at his wristband. His brows furrowed. Someone's looking for me. Third bro, you chat with Shuelei first. I'm going to take a call. Hu Huaying really wanted to agree. Then she would drag Luo Nan and Shuelei out for a meal and a game to strengthen their friendship. But she thought about it again. Luo Nan had an introverted temperament. He couldn't be impatient when it came to making friends. This was to avoid going overboard. She immediately said, "You go do what you need to do. I won't stay any longer." Sure enough, Luo Nan didn't urge her to stay. He nodded and thanked her once more. Then he hurriedly walked into the fire escape passageway. It looked like this was a very private call. Shuelei and Hu Huaying rode the elevator together to send Luo Nan off. Soon, peace was restored in the atrium. Luo Nan waited for the elevator to go up. He didn't turn on his wristband as he stood in the fire escape passageway. Instead, he squinted his eyes, and his telepathic thoughts leaped out. He arrived at a business hotel several dozen kilometers away. His temporary partner, Peony, had used the rubber band to give Ink a special stimulation. Luo Nan sensed it. As for the reason, it was very simple. The meeting was adjourned. Luo Nan looked at his watch. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening. The meeting had been going on for nearly 9 hours. Peony walked into the elevator with Ink still holding onto her shoulder. They looked quite compatible. But it was different from when they came. There was another person in the elevator. It was none other than Long 7. The two didn't have any intentions of communicating further. Long 7 was paying more attention to Ink in the elevator. He exited the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. He walked straight to the front row of parking spaces. There was a supercar there. It wasn't low-key at all. Luo Nan vaguely remembered that this was where Old Jin parked his car. Where did the man in the car go? Old Jin's commoner SUV drove in right when he was baffled. It flashed its lights twice and stopped in front of Peony at the elevator entrance. Clearly, he hadn't waited a day in vain. He had bought a Big Mac from who knows where, and he was eating it with relish. Peony let Ink go to the front passenger seat while she sat in the back. Old Jean opened the window, dispersing the smell in the car. Then the car started, but he heard Long 7 call out at this time. "See you tomorrow." Peony waved her hand rather reservedly, and the car soon drove out of the underground parking lot. Only now did Peony get down to business. She spoke quickly, "The meeting will continue tomorrow. I will send the relevant information and meeting records to the internal cloud space. Please check and receive them." Luo Nan actually wanted to seriously ask about the situation at the meeting, but he thought of Zhang Yingying's previous attitude. He hesitated a bit, but in the end he didn't say much. The car entered a state of silence. Now it was Old Jin's turn to ask, "Where do I get off?" Luo Nan remembered that Peony seemed to be someone from Acumen College. It was impossible for this woman not to be suspicious when he got off the car with her. Since the firm couldn't hide his true identity, he might as well play it to the end. "I'll leave once we're out of the parking lot. Then see you tomorrow." No one exchanged pleasantries. They waited for the car to drive onto the main road, and Ink jumped out of the car. It spread its wings and flew into the night sky. At the same time, Luo Nan logged into the cloud space over at Gear. He looked through the meeting records. He had gotten the relevant documents from Trigate Corporation. This company did things fairly properly. At the very least, the meeting records were clean and clear. Peony even marked them one by one, highlighting the key points. Luo Nan really didn't know where she got the energy and time. Aside from the information, she even wrote a short report introducing the situation of the participants. The focus of attention was naturally Long 7. Peony had already come to a preliminary conclusion, but the point of entry was that fashionable ear. In Peony's report, the earring was made from some sort of superplastic memory alloy material. It could greatly deform under high temperatures. It was a mechanical key favored by burners. In other words, Long 7 was very likely to be a deep blue walker. Plus, this person was relatively familiar with Xia City. He also had the special ability of radiation decontamination. Peony had already locked onto her target. Chapter 342. It had only been a few hours, and he had been skinned? Luo Nan grinned and looked at Peony's report in detail. The report simply indicated that Snake 7 had once appeared in the Society's operation to rescue Rei Wen. Of course, he was on the opposing side of the Society. Luo Nan didn't have a deep impression of this person. After all, 7 or 8 deep blue walkers had gathered that night, and there were many casualties. Only the heavens knew who was who. The only memory he had was a review report after the operation. There was this code name on it, representing that this person was deeply involved in the conflict. That was all. Right now, Luo Nan didn't have emotions like, so it was him. His attention was a bit distracted. Thinking deeper, there was no reason for this Snake 7 or Dragon 7 to not use similar methods when they returned. The focus of their analysis was certainly Peony, but as an eye-catching symbol, Ink, the giant crow, would most likely be used as a starting point. Could it be concealed? Ink was quite high profile that night, especially in the first half of the night. There were more than 1 or 2 eyewitnesses in the underground fighting arena. As Luo Nan furrowed his brows in thought, a refresh symbol appeared in the cloud space document. With a light tap, the entire document was updated. The amount of text instantly increased by quite a bit. Upon closer inspection, there was even more detailed information regarding Snake 7 listed out in the document. So Luo Nan knew that Snake 7 was a very talented ability user, but he was determined to become a deep blue walker. He joined Quantum Corporation of his own accord and became a special model tester at a young age. Later, he strongly requested to join the operation team and transferred to the Sky Blue Security Company. As for what his personality was like, how he handled things, and how his family relations were, they were all covered in the document. Luo Nan originally thought that this character was quite mysterious, but in the blink of an eye, he was exposed to the light of day. There was practically nowhere he could hide. Strands of cold air seeped through Luo Nan's teeth. His heart felt cold. He withdrew from the cloud space, his mind a bit chaotic. But one thing was very clear. With his current fame, special position, and use, every intelligence agency would absolutely not let him go. One small clue would reveal the general trend. From the perspective of Snake 7's fate, perhaps every intelligence agency had a document regarding him on their desks right now. They were constantly updated. Each and every one of his actions would be like Snake 7's. He would be completely exposed to the eyes of others. There would be no more secrets to speak of. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium in a daze. A few dozen seconds later, his wristband vibrated. Shui Lei called. I'm training in the open space in front of gear. Just give me a shout when you get home. Oh. Luo Nan responded subconsciously. Then he came back to his senses and expressed his refusal. It's already dinner time. You can go back. You don't need to wait for me. School had already ended. The reason Shui Lei said this was because he understood Luo Nan's pace of life. Luo Nan's training time was around this time every day. He needed to attend classes and study, so he made up his mind to stick to it. It's so boring to go home alone. It's better to go together. Luo Nan spat. Then we'll separate at the school gate? Right now Luo Nan was living at his aunt's house, while Shui Lei was in the Twin River district. One went east and the other went west. It would be strange if they went the same way. At the end of the day, Shui Lei was still focused on being a bodyguard, afraid that shameless people like the headquarters would appear again. Shui Lei also felt that it was quite ridiculous, so he asked, speaking of which, when are you going to be independent? You don't have to go to the hospital for treatment now. Auntie isn't afraid that I'll go for treatment. She's afraid that I'll suddenly go in for treatment again. Luo Nan knew that his health credit had gone bankrupt, and he was unable to explain the concept of the coupling of soul and flesh to Mrs. Luo Shuqing. He could only place his hopes on someone else. My cousin will be back next week. I'll give it another try with her attracting the firepower. The two chatted a bit more, and Shui Lei went to practice boxing. Luo Nan was actually quite envious of Shui Lei's current state. This week, with Xie Juanping's help, Shui Lei had already changed his relationship with the society. Shui Lei had no worries in the future. Aside from being Luo Nan's bodyguard every day, Shui Lei had a large amount of time to spend on martial cultivation. Compared to his close friend, Luo Nan's mood fluctuated quite a bit. Especially now, he was stimulated by the intelligence file. His heart was quite restless, and he didn't have the mind to think about practical matters. He paced a few steps under the atrium before raising his head. In a daze, the perfectly straight atrium and the ring-shaped night sky were like a prison, sealing him inside. No, that's not right. How could there be a prison in his mother's work? Luo Nan's thoughts changed when he thought of his mother. He looked at the atrium again. The structure was one and the same. It went from the bottom to the top, as if it led to the depths of the starry sky. It was limitless. When all was said and done, those thoughts just now were born from fear in his heart, drawing a prison. Luo Nan shook his head and scattered the illusions. He looked at the time. There were still a few minutes until the appointed time. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the breathing technique personally taught to him by Gym Master Xiao. He tried to calm his mind. Several breaths later, the tides of his mind did indeed calm down a bit. He even closed his eyes and began to move his mind. The energy within his body was polished, and the heart lantern of the eye's orifice burned with brilliance. Gradually, the distracting thoughts in his mind were burned to nothing. According to coupling theory, there were two relatively complete gears in the structure of Luo Nan's body and soul. One was soul strength, born from formatting theory. It had long since surpassed the limits of what the fleshly body could endure. Its power was great and difficult to control. Luo Nan relied on the hollow depository function of the external neuron to form a stable structure. Even so, it overflowed outwards at every moment. It was like an iceberg towering above the vast ocean. It was vast and majestic, and the pressure it exerted was extreme. Luo Nan gave it a name. It was called the God Gear. The other was the structure of the eye's orifice. Xiao Shenyu imparted a technique that relied on the natural wonders of the human body. It also happened to borrow Luo Nan's special circumstances to construct a brand new medium for transferring and refining soul strength. It formed the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and stimulated the potential of the human body. Luo Nan called it the body gear. According to Gym Master Xiao's words, the cultivation of the eye's orifice was only a beginning in the cultivation of the fleshly body. Compared to the towering iceberg and vast ocean of the God Gear, the eye's orifice could only be described as a small reservoir. It played an auxiliary role. The God Gear and the body gear built an embryonic order frame within Luo Nan's body. They meshed with each other through the method of coupling, influencing each other. Though the frame was formed, it was still simple and crude. It relied more on external objects. Without the suppression of the external neuron, it was guaranteed that Luo Nan would be instantly faced with a calamity. Even with the external neuron suppressing him, electricity and fire flowed between the God Gear and the body gear. Their energies clashed, and several thunderclouds and storms swept through every day. It was hard for outsiders to understand the suffering within. It was precisely these dangers hidden deep within Luo Nan's body that left no leeway for trial and error. There were no sentiments to speak of. They forced Luo Nan to use the most focused attitude to carefully cultivate his foundation, to fix the fragile balance bit by bit. As long as he began to cultivate, all trivial and distracting thoughts would be annihilated into a puff of smoke. It was quite worthwhile to use them to dispel negative emotions. Luo Nan no longer had the concept of time once he entered the meditative state. Fortunately, Luo Nan remembered that he still had training classes to attend. He only did a bit of maintenance on the structure of the eye's orifice. He dissolved the overly powerful interference power of electricity and fire, and then he finished his homework. His senses were exceptionally sharp when he entered the meditative state. His mind was tranquil, and all the surrounding information entered his mind. He felt a marvelous sound seep into his ears. It was like the fine ticking of the minute and second hands of a clock. It rotated in circles, without beginning and without end. Luo Nan was not surprised at all. From his perspective, this was the breathing of gear. The building had 12 floors above and below the ground. Especially on the ground, including the atrium, there were 15 main halls. It was like a well-adjusted machine. Every part worked smoothly, and the teeth meshed together. Only then could there be such a harmonious rhythm. From Luo Nan's perspective, this was the sound of nature. It was the reward for his earnest cultivation. He subconsciously wore a smile on his face as he listened to this clear and orderly rhythm. However, just a few seconds later, there was a noise that made a sizzling sound. At first, it was just a single noise that suddenly affected the beat. But a few seconds later, the noise arose one after another. It was like the sudden insertion of dry and hoarse croaks during a band's performance. The noise rose and fell at random, turning a perfectly good performance into a nightmare. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. The sound of nature was no longer there, but the noise still existed. It was layer upon layer of crisscrossing radio waves. The source came from every corner of the building. Cameras, bugs, optical cables, antennas. There were all sorts of forms. They gathered all sorts of information and transmitted it out. They were like pairs of cold and gloomy eyes, spying on Luo Nan's every move from every angle. It was like he was in a prison. Luo Nan raised his head. The darkness could not obstruct the strengthened vision of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Separated by the integrated glass, a certain burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement was pointed at him. It was done openly. There was more than one monitoring device working in the surroundings. Luo Nan pursed his lips. He wanted to get angry, but he inexplicably felt that this was absurd and ridiculous. The corner of his lips unconsciously curled up. He was just worried that Long Seven's misfortune would fall on his head. He never thought that his thoughts would become a prophecy. Hey hee. What should come would come. Luo Nan squeezed out a dry voice from his mouth. The negative emotions that he had just dispelled were like a storm that suddenly descended. Rolling thunderclouds crackled as they assaulted his mind. Bang! The burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement exploded into pieces. Similar shattering sounds rang out from every corner of the building at practically the same time. Of course, there was also the muffled sound of tripping brakes. Direct methods brought about crude consequences. The sparse lighting within the building of gear was instantly extinguished. Then the central control system operated spontaneously, activating the backup circuitry. But unfortunately, it failed. The listening devices were so concentrated that even the backup system was hard-pressed to escape. Luo Nan stood within the darkness, coldly feeling everything. But then Shuelei's phone call came in the next moment. He was so nervous that his voice changed. Report your location. Mentally connect. I'm fine. Luo Nan didn't know how to explain things to Shuelei. His wristband vibrated once more, and the central control system activated manual operation mode. It asked him if he wanted to use the maintenance robots to carry out emergency repairs. Luo Nan agreed in passing and found a reason. The quality of those people's work is abysmal. Yeah, that's it. And at this time, the hexa ear vibrated. On the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole followed the teaching plan and went online on time to greet Luo Nan. This was the usual procedure, but today's message was a bit odd. Chapter 343. Luo Nan was stunned by the inexplicable message, but he soon connected it with the unforeseen event from before. How did he know? They're spying on me. Oh, I think they told me about it a few days ago. The direct logic aroused his anger, but a portion of his blurry memories became clear. The two sides collided, turning into a wave of meaningless emotional turmoil. Yes, He Yuan had proposed to install monitoring and alarm equipment in gear at the beginning of the Xia City branch's testing. This was to deal with unusual situations. Luo Nan agreed at the time. Bamboo Pole was responsible for the installation, and he even integrated the control system into his wristband. This was great. When Bamboo Pole lost his temper, he didn't differentiate between friend and foe. He killed them all. Luo Nan wanted to leave a message in reply, but he didn't know what to say. He only said a few useless words after a while. It's nothing. Hee, if it's nothing then it's nothing. Are we still going to class today? Bamboo Pole's attitude really wasn't that of a qualified teacher. He had always been like this. The training courses arranged by He Yuan had been going on for nearly a month now. Paper cuts, soul strength activation techniques, had become extremely simple due to Luo Nan's achievements in coupling ability. He was the first to finish. He Yuan's world order in and out of the psychic wave network had finished 2 days ago. Cragburst and Red Fox's practical courses needed to be adjusted due to the changes in the situation, including Luo Nan's increase in ability. They had yet to officially begin. Only Bamboo Pole's Notes on the Most Important People of the World class was still progressing steadily. Emotional turmoil wasn't a reason to refuse class. Luo Nan replied, "I'm on. Can we start now?" "No problem." Bamboo Pole immediately skipped over the unpleasant matters. As usual, he sent over a set of pictures of people, videos, and other image materials. He confirmed the main content of today's class, and then he activated the video call function. He raised his hand in greeting, and then he started chatting face-to-face with Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole was the only one who spoke most of the time. The content was probably, "Don't be fooled by his sanctimonious appearance. In fact, his lovers are all beautiful. Don't be surprised." This was Bamboo Pole's usual teaching method. It was known as teaching through fun. This bro was the most knowledgeable fellow Luo Nan had ever seen. He usually presented himself as a hacker, and he conveniently searched for all sorts of beautiful women. But he had deep attainments in religion, history, mystic arts, and so on. He was also a master paparazzi. His class was mainly about characters. He would only talk about 2 or 3 characters in each class, sometimes even just one. He would talk about official matters, trivial matters, news, gossip, and so on. There were many different levels and angles. Often, after a class, the characters he talked about would stand out and be hard to forget. But in terms of progress, it was really slow. Looking at the course plan, Yuan's course capacity was about the same as his. However, the former's course had already ended, and Bamboo Pole's 100 characters hadn't even talked about half of them. Bamboo Pole said bluntly, "If you learn half of these courses, if you're really interested, you'll find out for yourself. Even if you don't want to learn, you'll learn it anyway. If you're really not interested, you can just treat it as idle chatter and have some fun. This way, the curriculum can be long or short, and it can be adjusted at any time." He knew very well that Luo Nan's mood wasn't right today, so his lecture was relatively simple. The content of the lecture didn't unfold. In the end, he even took the initiative to ask, "Why don't we stop here first?" Luo Nan woke up from his absent-minded state. He knew that he wasn't paying attention. He was quite embarrassed, so he promptly apologized. Bamboo Pole responded with a beaming smile, "No need to be so formal. Actually, I'm just an intelligence agent that serves the boss. I'm in charge of pushing information. If the boss has time, then I'll report a bit more information. If he doesn't have time, then I'll report a bit less. The boss has been quite busy lately, right?" Luo Nan was helpless. The group of people who participated in the Frost River reality incident would call him boss every now and then. This was originally Red Fox's way of mocking him and Yuan, but it had grown louder and louder these days. The malice had been erased, and it had become a nickname that everyone knew. For a mischievous person like Bamboo Pole, he wouldn't feel comfortable if he didn't call him a few times a day. Luo Nan could only ignore him, but Bamboo Pole was right. Luo Nan had been courting death these past few days. He had found Worker Zhai to be his tutor, learning the relevant knowledge of engineering. The amount of time and energy required to have some accomplishments in this major subject was far greater than a package of crash courses. However, his bad mood today had nothing to do with the pressure of learning. Right now, Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to attend classes. He really wanted to communicate with someone, but he didn't know where to start. He subconsciously flipped through the information on the person he had just obtained. This person's name and past deeds were all forgotten after a single glance. However, Bamboo Pole's habit of organizing the information from multiple angles and layers made Luo Nan make some associations. How many bugs were piled up in this information? The corner of Luo Nan's lips twitched. Does every famous person do research like this? Most of it is public information. Of course, a lot of it is the sweat and blood of paparazzi. Bamboo Pole raised an eyebrow. You're only average in this course. Otherwise, you could use it as a template. It wouldn't be a problem for you to become the #1 paparazzi in a large entertainment media company. Luo Nan suddenly had a strange thought. I can be considered a famous person now, right? To a certain extent, yes. Then, Brother Bamboo Pole, what kind of person am I? How do you research me? Luo Nan actually wanted to know just how much he had exposed to the various intelligence agencies. However, his ability to express himself was truly worrisome. It caused Bamboo Pole's understanding to be a bit off. Yo, you feel confused about life. You want to do a self-analysis? Luo Nan wanted to correct Bamboo Pole, but he had second thoughts. Zhang Yingying's words had made his mind restless before he came to gear. His terrible mood had been buried ever since then. It would be good if he could get to the bottom of it. You can say that. On the other side of the screen, Bamboo Pole sat on an ergonomic chair. He adjusted himself into a comfortable position. I've mentioned the method of researching people to you before. It's nothing more than the 3 aspects of nature, society, and psychology. Luo Nan nodded. It was true that he had learned this before, but it was quite complicated when he actually began to delve into it. Bamboo Pole chuckled. You asked in a hurry. I wasn't prepared. However, since you asked, let's treat this matter as material. Let's do a simple analysis. Luo Nan was indifferent. Let's first talk about your problem. A normal person, a person of society, has an instinctive mentality of privacy and a mentality of vigilance. People pay attention to other people's evaluations of themselves, but they very rarely take the initiative to ask others to judge them. Unless they want to show off, or they lack self-confidence. This is the meaning of asking for guidance. And all of these are considered morbid. Luo Nan grunted and couldn't help but laugh. Let's just ask for guidance. It looks like the symptoms are a bit lighter. Bamboo Pole shook his head. There's no need to ask me. Ask yourself. Ask yourself right now. Ask yourself. How is your body's condition under natural conditions? Is it vigorous like a dragon or fierce like a tiger? Or do you have a hidden illness? Be frank. Your body hasn't completely recovered yet. Luo Nan couldn't do without the external neuron right now. The difference in scale between the God gear and the body gear was a stubborn illness. This was especially true for the uncontrollable growth of his mental strength. He still had no clue as to how to solve this problem. Fortunately, the number of human-faced arachnids that wandered through Xia City was gradually decreasing. Otherwise, Luo Nan might really explode if the wraith sign of the Blood Flame Order doubled in hunting speed. He had learned the acupoint cultivation technique from Gym Master Xiao, but he was unable to digest it on a large scale. Bamboo Pole didn't ask further. He changed the angle. What's your situation like in terms of social conditions? This time, Luo Nan didn't hesitate. He answered, not good. Although he had the Xia City branch behind him and quite a few friends, headquarters, Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and the Blood Flame Order were all latent threats. If all of them were to explode, even 10 Luo Nans would turn to dust. In terms of psychological conditions, forget it. It's obvious. Bamboo Pole smacked his lips. There's a situation in all 3 major areas. The answer doesn't need to be said. Brother, to tell you the truth, the problem is heavy. Luo Nan didn't expect that this would be the result after a bit of analysis based on Bamboo Pole's template. Wasn't this completely warped? He forgot about the matter of the intelligence organization for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment before asking, how should I solve it? Bamboo Pole spread his hands. You want me to be your advisor? How can I be counted on to do something that even secretary he can't do? Luo Nan knew this, but he still wanted to ask, Brother Bamboo Pole, if you were in my position, what would you do? If I were you, I would turn around and leave. I would run as far as I could. I would hide as deep as I could. This is what they call a cicada shedding its carapace. Retreat in order to advance. Turn light into darkness. Forget it. I know you wouldn't do this. Just treat it like I'm talking nonsense. Bamboo Pole's mind was clear-headed from beginning to end. He sighed. How about this? I'll give you 2 examples for reference. I've talked about the first one before. Her Majesty Empress Wu. At the very beginning, when Her Majesty Empress Wu just made her debut, many people said that she was Wu Mainyang, that she amused people with her beauty. They said she was Wu Jiaoyi, Empress Wu. They called Her Majesty Empress Wu all the way to Her Majesty Empress Wu, but she remained unmoved. It could be said that a rock doesn't turn in a flowing river. She's round on the outside but square on the inside. Round on the outside but square on the inside? Luo Nan instinctively felt that these words weren't right. Bamboo Pole insisted on his own opinion. Did you forget? I told you before. Her Majesty Empress Wu is very domineering, but she was able to maneuver freely in the past. Her methods were extraordinary. First, she borrowed President Ouyang's power, then she became independent and established the hidden indigo firm. She recruited non-combatants. She never kept a low profile, but she never crossed the line. She has a multitude of talented people under her command. It's not like she didn't have enemies in Xia City before, including headquarters. Now she has either pacified them or swept them flat. No matter what the wind and waves are like, she remains unmoved. She steadily strengthens, finally becoming a great power. It's said that her actions are like heaven, and her people are like ghosts. She deeply understands the true essence of techniques, and power. Bamboo Pole was not stingy with his words of praise for Her Majesty Empress Wu. He was endless. This type of person who is as unmoving as a mountain can be said to be the path of an emperor. Some people think that the words Her Majesty Empress Wu are mocking, but I feel that it's quite appropriate. In my personal opinion, this is the most brilliant path. Luo Nen imagined Her Majesty Empress Wu's methods of maneuvering freely. He was fascinated for a time. This path is very difficult, right? Bamboo Pole laughed. She has a clear goal from the beginning. Her methods are incisive. She uses both the carrot and the stick. You can't learn it. It's too late for you to learn it. Luo Nan was speechless. I used this as an example to give you a benchmark. I used it as a reference. Let's talk about the second example. I haven't talked about it before, but you're certainly familiar with this person. She's your secretary. Chapter 344. Through the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole looked straight at him and grinned. I won't say much about other things, but since you've attended both my class and Secretary He's class, don't you have any thoughts? Probably. Luo Nan's heart wasn't as hesitant as his mouth was. After all, He Yuan and Bamboo Pole were both teaching cultural classes, and their styles were completely different. In private, he couldn't help but make some comparisons. Bamboo Pole encouraged, Tell me. There was no need to say much about Bamboo Pole's teaching methods. As for He Yuan, Luo Nan thought for a bit and said, Sister Yuan teaches. All sorts of information is readily available at her fingertips. She covers a wide range of details, and the context is clear. She is very captivating. What else? His arguments are precise, and his words are eloquent. Furthermore, they are often sharp and penetrating to the bone. Most of the time, he points directly at the deeper business behind important events. The relationship between the secular world and the inner world, the traditional political structure and the new powers of ability users, is clearly understood. Bamboo Pole's eyebrows twitched. What you've just said, I think I've done pretty well. Of course, I can forget about the righteous promise part. But don't just praise me. Do you think I don't have any flaws? Or is it something different from me? He saw that Luo Nan was a bit hesitant, so he urged Luo Nan with all his might, Relax. I won't blabber. Plus, even if I say it, people will be open-minded. They won't care. I don't know what's missing. In the end, Luo Nan was an honest child. He didn't want to gossip behind Luo Nan's back. He pondered for a while before saying, I'm different from you. The knowledge points in class are more concentrated, and the pace is much faster than yours. Bamboo Pole laughed heartily and clapped his hands. That's right. Huh. Luo Nan didn't understand what was so funny about this. Bamboo Pole reminded him further, Isn't the timetable he arranged for you for the same reason? From morning till night, you followed him closely? It's all right. It's not particularly tight. Besides, if I don't do this, how can I quickly grasp knowledge? Of course you think it's normal because you and she are the same kind of person. They're all like a taut bow. When they shoot out an arrow, it's sharp and indestructible. But what about during normal times? Luo Nan was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard someone place him on the same level as He Yuan. Bamboo Pole continued, no one in the branch can keep up with Secretary He's fast pace. It's as if there's a beast chasing after her. Ever since she had joined, she had assisted in the affairs of the branch and drawn up various systems. Of course, it was good, but it was a loose association, and they weren't in a state of war. Who could persevere every day? This is because those things are very hard to deal with. They are very hard to achieve. Luo Nen didn't like hearing these words. It's very hard to achieve? As long as it involves confrontation, it's very hard. Bamboo Pole took care of Luo Nan's mood. He erased a key phrase and highlighted another. Who are the people standing against you? If the disparity is too great, the harder you work, the greater the pressure. Unless you possess the ability to flatten everything, or at the very least, you have the ability to make most people compromise. Just like Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan was silent. Even Her Majesty Empress Wu rarely directly confronts a certain colossus. For her, growing and strengthening is her #1 priority. She takes the initiative. She prioritizes things. She has to do things step by step. It doesn't matter if she takes a few detours. Secretary He's route is very clear. It's to integrate the society's stragglers and stragglers. Perhaps her methods are worth discussing, but she has a strong backbone. She has many resources and her selfishness is even less. What about you? You charge your way towards your goal. You flatten all the traps and mechanisms. Fortunately, you're a stubborn piece of iron. You'll treat ordinary checkpoints as hammering blows. If it were someone else, they would have long since been smashed into meat paste. But in the future, will Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and those people from headquarters continue to hammer you? Or will they set up a blast furnace and melt you in one breath? Luo Nan's eyelids twitched. This was the situation he was worried about. However, Bamboo Pole's words seemed to have deviated once more. He was no longer simply analyzing Luo Nan. Luo Nan was still uncertain, so he followed along with Bamboo Pole's tone and asked, "Then Brother Bamboo Pole, what do you think I should do next?" Only when the words left his mouth did Luo Nan remember that he had asked Bamboo Pole for guidance not too long ago. Back then, Bamboo Pole had refused, and Her Majesty Empress Wu and He Yuan were 2 examples. Sure enough, Bamboo Pole extended a hand and pointed at him. "You're asking me this again. What's the point of asking me? I dare to bet that with your temper, no matter what extravagant flowery words other people say, you'll still follow your temper when things come to a head. Flatten. Whether it's a hammer or a blast furnace in front of you, there's no difference." Luo Nen really didn't have much hope in his control. There was just one point where he admitted that Bamboo Pole was wrong. "I don't want to play with flatten. Who wouldn't be happy if they could reach their goal more easily? But when things come to a head, I have no choice." Then how do you get yourself to the point where things come to a head time and time again? Luo Nen really did consider this question seriously for a moment. Since when did he always fall into a situation where there was no way out? He didn't obtain an answer, but there was one thing that was very clear. If these days continued, the times where things came to a head would grow more and more frequent. The opportunities for him to make choices would grow smaller and smaller until there were none. Bamboo Pole looked at Luo Nan's expression and could roughly understand Luo Nan's current bewilderment. "So, I'll still say the same thing. If I were you, I would certainly run as far as I can. It's not because of fear or cowardice. It's because you have enough space to act as a buffer. Only then can you grow and strengthen. Only then can you have the leeway to choose." "That's impossible." Luo Nen didn't even need to think before he refused. Bamboo Pole had expected this long ago. His eyes didn't even blink as he immediately said, "Then you need a shield and a rein. The shield will give you a chance to catch your breath on the battlefield. The rain will strangle your neck when you're hot-headed. Luonan blinked his eyes. Brother Bamboo Pole, you can speak a bit more bluntly. Bamboo Pole rolled his eyes. I've already spoken bluntly enough. Fine. What I mean is that you need to find a backer. Backer? Rely on who? Bamboo Pole looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. Who in Xia City can you rely on right now? President Ouyang. Get lost, you idiot. Luonan grunted. He felt quite wronged. There were only two extraordinaries who could protect him in Xia City. What was wrong with him thinking of Ouyang Chen in the first instance? Luonan's thoughts spun again. Only then did he realize that the example that Bamboo Pole spared no effort in talking was absolutely not just for show. You want me to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu? Luonan knew that he had finally guessed correctly when he saw Bamboo Pole's expression. However, he didn't quite understand Bamboo Pole's train of thought. What's the difference between President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu? Also, aren't I under their protection right now? The Xia City branch taking care of you is official business. Since it's official business, it will be restricted by procedures. Accordingly, there will certainly be flaws. The matter with headquarters is the best proof. The same reasoning can be used on President Ouyang. Who let him be the president? Bamboo Pole used his finger to point at Luonan from afar. More importantly, in a loose organization like the society, there's no one who can control you. You can do stupid things, and there's no way to restrain you. He Yueyin is quite suitable, but she's standing in the wrong position from the start. She's the boss's secretary and the like. It's so awkward. Luonan was a bit embarrassed. Brother Bamboo Pole, you're an anarchist. Everything you say is controlled. Is that really good? At the very least, I never cause trouble. Bamboo Pole stabbed a knife into Luonan's chest and twisted it. I rarely do stupid things. Even so, I sometimes find a place to rest and earn a bit of extra money. Idiot. I'm a lobbyist right now, Boss Luo. Chapter 345. Luonan bid farewell to Shuelei at the school gates and took a car back home. The car he rode in was sent by the Xia City branch. The driver was a professional security guard with extraordinary strength. The two were not familiar with each other, so they did not talk much on the way. Luonan was the only one staring blankly most of the time. It was just as Bamboo Pole said. Today, Luonan had indeed become a lobbyist in addition to teaching. And the person who hired him was the legendary Her Majesty Empress Wu. Bamboo Pole was eloquent, and his persuasive skills were sufficient. Luonan was indeed a bit moved at the time. But the awkward thing was that he had pretty much forgotten all of these words by the time he got in the car. It was not that he was not attentive, but that he was overly nervous. Luonan had always been the focal point of the society during his time there, but this was the first time he had accepted a genuine recruitment like today. He lacked the relevant social experience. His mind was a complete mess of distracting thoughts when he encountered this matter. He did not know how to respond. So much so that Luonan remembered the most clearly not the benefits Her Majesty Empress Wu would give him. Instead, it was Bamboo Pole's words of consolation. Boss Luo, you are not of age yet, but you are already a complete member of society. Things like this are unavoidable. You can seek the opinions of others. Ask more. Refer more. Don't rush to make a judgment. Her Majesty Empress Wu went through me and not through Zhang Yinging because that girl is too impatient. She wants to avoid playing the emotional card and affecting your judgment. These words were filled with sincerity, but the reason why Luonan remembered them was because Bamboo Pole's words, member of society, poked at his sore spot. Luonan opened the car window and rested his elbow on the window frame, feeling the incoming night wind. A moment later, he used his other hand to draw a diagram. It was a tetrahedron, and it was divided into 5 layers. According to formatting theory, this was the societal formatting diagram. From bottom to top, it was clearly divided into 5 layers: student, employee, technician, priest, and politician. This was the classification of the resources he controlled. It was barely possible to correspond to the outside society. Luo Nan still remembered his first conversation with Zhang Yingying on the ship Lanshan. He had solemnly vowed that he needed pressure and opportunity to enter a completely new circle to satisfy the needs of his rapid rise in social status. His voice was still in his ears. He had truly taken this step, but how could he have imagined that he would be at a loss today? He didn't think that his initial choice was wrong, but was this kind of passive situation inevitable? If one viewed life as a game, then the path he had chosen after his class advancement would definitely be a terrible one. Furthermore, there would be no save point, and he wouldn't be able to start all over again, nor would he be able to stop. Luo Nan had to chew on the bitter fruit of life, and he had reached a juncture. He had to make a decision. He could not stop moving forward. Luo Nan couldn't quite understand Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts. He was unable to guess the calculations within. He could only follow Bamboo Pole's advice and seek the opinions of others. The first person he thought of was He Yueyin, but when he applied for the call, she should be dealing with some business and couldn't be distracted. She only left a message saying that she would contact him later. Luo Nan could only skip it for now. His thoughts swept through the list of friends in the Hexaear, pondering over who he should consult. Zhang Yingying had to jump over first. Cragburst seemed to be making a move tonight as well. As for Octopus, Luo Nan had no confidence in his ability to express himself with words, so he simply turned them into words. He left a few messages for his friends, asking for advice. Not long after it was sent, the driver suddenly said, "Boss Luo, we're home." Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment. Only then did he realize that he had taken a bit too long to organize his words. The car had already driven to the entrance of the residential area. It was just past dinner time. There were quite a few residents strolling and exercising on the streets. "Thank you, Brother Chi." Luo Nan politely expressed his thanks and got off the car to head home. He only realized halfway there. When did he become accustomed to being addressed as Boss Luo? Luo Nan walked into the house. There was no one in the living room. Luo Nan called out, and his uncle, Mo Haihang, responded from the kitchen, "Oh Luo Nan, wait a moment. The food needs to be reheated." It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Dinner time had long passed. However, as long as his uncle was home, he would certainly reserve a portion for Luo Nan, the king of stomachs. Luo Nan first went to wash his face and used cold water to stimulate himself. When he returned to the living room, Mrs. Luo Shuqing was already sitting on the sofa in her home clothes. "Auntie." Luo Nan rushed to greet her. He was most afraid of this person in the family. Luo Shuqing had her head lowered as she fiddled with her wristband. Luo Nan's heart thumped when he saw this scene. He immediately bypassed the minefield and headed to the dining room. But he was still too late. A cold and clear voice came from behind him. "Did Mo Ya call yet?" "No. I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. Maybe Mo Peng." "Where is he?" Luo Nan turned around. He didn't see the best shield, but this didn't prevent him from diverting the disaster. "He went crazy outside. I hope he'll be back before 9. Mrs. Luo Shuqing's attention shifted a bit, but she soon locked onto her target. "Has Mo Ya confirmed the specific time she'll be returning to Xia City?" The words "return to Xia City" were remarkable. As the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than a mother. Madame Luo Shuqing had already determined that even if her unfilial daughter returned from the music festival, she wouldn't return home for a while. After all, she would be gone for a month. Things had gotten out of hand. Luo Nan continued to play dumb. "I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. At most, I'll look at her circle of friends. Won't she be back after the music festival ends?" Luo Shuqing raised her head to look at her nephew. In the end, she couldn't resist her doting heart. She sighed and didn't pursue the matter any further. "Let's go eat. If there's nothing going on at school, we'll adjust the time for supplementary lessons. It's not good to eat too late." Luo Nan responded vaguely and quickly sat at the dining table. His uncle just happened to deliver the sliced beef with a small pancake. The pancake was wrapped with beef and scallions. The texture was firm and crisp. It was very chewy and went well with the rice. Luo Nan was half serious and half fake in order to avoid trouble. He buried his head in the food and didn't give his mouth any time to rest. His uncle sat on the other side of the dining table and sighed, "It's fortunate that you're practicing martial arts. Otherwise, your body would be out of shape if you continued like this every day." This was a good topic. Luo Nan's mouth wasn't idle. He could only nod over and over. Aside from Mo Peng, no one in the family has ever been fat. If you have the ability, then feed that unfilial daughter into a pig. I want to see how she'll go wild in the outside world. Luo Shuqing was annoyed by being alone in the living room, so she came to the dining table. His uncle immediately shut his mouth and smiled, avoiding the frontal attack. Luo Shuqing knew that her husband had an impenetrable ability. Her gaze turned to a certain person who was the easiest to bully. Luo Nan hated that he couldn't stuff the entire beef pancake into his mouth. But he had eaten too quickly just now. The previous roll had already entered his stomach. Right now there was a gap, and he couldn't avoid it. His brain heated up, and by some strange coincidence, he self-destructed. "Today, a friend's boss wants me to go work at her company." Chapter 346. Luo Nan regretted it the moment he spoke. Moya must have secretly placed a curse on him. That's why he would ignore the consequences and step forward to block the bullet. No matter how much he regretted it, he could no longer swallow the words he had spoken. The consequences of his actions were immediately apparent. His uncle and aunt's gazes were directed at him at the same time. They were puzzled at first, but then they became vigilant. "Your friend? Boss? What do I want you to do? What kind of company is that?" There was a sequence of questions, but the meaning behind them was the same. Luo Nan knew that he had poked a hornet's nest. He was unable to explain why his family's introverted otaku would suddenly attract the interest of a social company. He could only bite the bullet and avoid the question. "I haven't agreed yet. I'm afraid he's just saying it." Luo Shuqing stared into her nephew's eyes. "The question now is, why is this company interested in you? Why can't she be interested in me?" Luo Nan forced himself to be thick-skinned. He was prepared to pester her endlessly at any time. Luo Shuqing wanted to say more, but Mo Haihang gestured for his wife to stop. He maintained his smile and said calmly, "Let me ask, why didn't you agree? Is the pay not suitable or the time does not permit?" "Yes." Mo Haihang didn't wait for Luo Nan to finish speaking. "Your cautious attitude is correct. Regardless of age, as long as there was a labor relationship, working hours and pay were very important. How much did they pay you?" Luo Nan was stupefied when it came to the specifics. He stared blankly for a moment before replying, "We haven't reached that step yet. If there's a need to talk later, you might as well ask your aunt to be your advisor. She's a senior HR officer in a big company, and she specializes in this. She's experienced in scamming people and getting scammed." Luo Nan buried his head in eating. He responded vaguely, "Oh, okay." Luo Shuqing glared at her husband, but as a married couple for decades, she knew some tricks very well, so she immediately changed her words. "Working and being independent is a good thing. What's the name of that company again? I can help you find out the bottom line first. Other things aside, you should be able to grasp the average salary. If you negotiate with them, you will be able to seize the initiative." She had been in the HR business for many years. In terms of human resources management, she had a wide network of contacts and was skilled in the business. He had already opened up a professional search software as he spoke. He could find all the official businesses of Xia City on it. The couple looked amiable on the outside, but in reality, they were pressing him. Luo Nan's brain was no longer working in circles. He wasn't good at lying to begin with, so he began to leak out, "I think she's called Blue something? Hidden Indigo Company? It should be an office." Luo Nan half buried his face into his rice bowl. Otherwise, the cold sweat on his forehead would be seen clearly. Now he knew why he was in such a difficult situation in just a month, and why he had made so many enemies. This impulse was too deadly. Luo Shuqing quickly found out the results. Hidden Indigo Firm. Oh, there's registration information and tax payment records. It's mainly engaged in legal consulting business. It seems to be fairly formal. What's the name of the boss who recruited you? Wu. Ahem, I only know her surname is Wu. Wuzhong? Luo Shuqing read out the name of the legal representative of the firm. For a moment, the restaurant was filled with awkwardness. Long live Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan let out a long breath. Now he had a handle. Wait, samurai? Why not just call her Wu Zetian? Mo Haihang tapped his fingers on the table and frowned. Of course, there were many unreliable parents in this world. There were all sorts of strange names for their children, but there were extremely few who would specifically use the name of a unique and unmatched character in history. More importantly, this violated the current laws and regulations. Not to mention anything else, it was impossible for the social authority department he worked in to pass such an application for information. But the current situation was that this Mrs. Wu Zhao had used this name in an imposing manner. Moreover, she had used this name to register an official office. Based on his years of experience working in the SCA, he could tell that Wu Zhao, this office, and the corresponding registration information were all fake from start to finish. It could even be said that she was making a mockery of public authority. Or she was a very powerful person who could openly violate certain social rules. Of course, she must be very willful. Mo Haihang was unable to immediately verify these judgments, nor did he say them out loud. His mind spun like lightning, but his face remained smiling as he asked, "She took the initiative to express interest in you. This is very good. This means that you have a skill that is useful to her business." "What is it specifically?" "Yeah, what was it?" Luo Nan was a bit absent-minded. He held a cautious attitude toward Her Majesty Empress Wu's basis for recruiting him. It was hard not to be suspicious when he carried a treasure on him. He didn't have an answer right now, but he couldn't stop talking. He could only rack his brain and comb through his abilities on the surface. Fortunately, a flash of inspiration struck him before he suffocated to death. He combined today's experience and found a reason. "They appreciate my sketching ability." "Sketching?" Luo Nan's answer was more or less outside of the expectations of the two parents. They looked at each other once more. They knew that Luo Nan had a sketching ability. He could sketch a vivid and lifelike drawing in an extremely short amount of time. But what was the use of this toy? Luo Shuqing immediately asked, "What does the hidden indigo firm need this kind of employee for?" "It seems to be a detective or something. Nowadays, many people carry anti-surveillance equipment. Some things are hard to operate, and it will arouse the other party's vigilance. They want to recruit someone like me to give it a try." "Private detective?" Luo Shuqing's brows locked tight. "This sort of job?" "Yeah. I also feel that this sort of job is a bit strange. It's just that I can't refuse them face to face because of my friend. I'll wait for the other side's enthusiasm to subside in 2 days. Then I'll refuse." Luo Nan finished speaking in a single breath and let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally made the connection, but he would certainly collapse if he continued speaking. He immediately swept the food off the table like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. Then he stood up. "That's about it. Uncle and Auntie, don't worry. I won't run off into society. Oh, the materials for today's supplementary lessons should be sent over. There's also homework. I'm going upstairs." He didn't even tidy up the dishes after he finished speaking. He turned around and left. Luo Shuqing still wanted to call out to him, but Mo Haihang gestured for her to calm down. The two made eye contact, and Luo Shuqing discovered that her husband's attitude was extremely serious. Luo Nan went up to the second floor in a few steps and fled to his room. He locked the door and finally relaxed. He lay on the bed, swayed a few times, and then began to roll around while holding his head. "Luonan, you pig. Dumbass. Idiot." He muttered as he defiled himself to relieve the hatred in his heart. But soon he began to feel weak in his heart. His two elders should be pondering over his matter right now. His words were full of flaws. He shouldn't think of getting through this easily. For now, he needed to do some detective work. Oh no, it should be the work of a spy. Yes, with his mental sensing ability, there were no secrets to the conversation between uncle and auntie. When the time came, he would design a plan to deal with suspicions. It shouldn't be hard to brush them off, right? Chapter 347. Mr. Luo, are you looking for me? Huyen asked through the hexaear. Her voice was low and hoarse. She was probably in a rather tired state. Luo Nan grunted, unable to respond immediately. He remembered Bamboo Pole's example and knew that Huyen was also under a lot of pressure. It was inevitable that he would feel a little embarrassed constantly troubling her. Mr. Luo? Huyen's tone was still questioning, but her attitude was still very calm. It's like this. Just now, Brother Bamboo Pole mentioned, Luo Nan did his best to make a long story short. He talked about how Bamboo Pole earned extra money and how he helped Her Majesty Empress Wu recruit him. In the end, he naturally asked for Huyen's opinion. Huyen didn't respond immediately. She was silent for approximately half a minute. When she opened her mouth again, she didn't rush to answer Luo Nan's question. Instead, she inquired about the details of the time, including the examples that Luo Nan was too embarrassed to elaborate on. She asked about them one by one. Luo Nan was basically forced by Huyen to recollect the situation at the time once more. He felt even more awkward. He felt like he was a villain who was trying to stir up trouble. Huyen didn't care about this. After thinking for a moment, she opened her mouth and said, Mr. Luo, are you considering whether or not to join? Or are you considering Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts? These words hit the nail on the head. Luo Nan had gone through this period of contemplation, and Huyen had forced him to recall. Luo Nan was more or less clear about his own thoughts. Why did he join the hidden indigo firm? In the past, Zhang Yingying had also introduced the firm to him. The main business of this firm was to provide services to the rich and powerful of Xia City. They looked for rich men to catch sheep, managed interpersonal relationships, made investments, and so on. This wasn't the life Luo Nan wanted, except for a generous income. Luo Nan didn't have anything to hide. He immediately responded, I don't understand what Her Majesty Empress Wu is thinking. Well, hold on. She doesn't seem to be particularly eager to recruit me. A flash of inspiration flashed through Luo Nan's mind as he spoke, and the meaning of the latter half of the sentence changed. Huyen declined to comment. What's the reason? You know, a few days ago, the firm did a business outsourcing. This model suits me very well. At least, it's more suitable than working in the firm. If it wasn't for this matter, and I'm in urgent need of money now, I might really join. But since there's a better way, it'll definitely affect the so-called recruitment. Isn't that so? Luo Nan was a bit lacking in confidence when he spoke to this point. He urgently needed to seek advice. Huyen replied, There's no problem with the overall train of thought. Really? There's only one thing that needs to be corrected. According to Her Majesty Empress Wu's temperament, the business opportunities you've obtained should be compensation. Luo Nan expressed his lack of understanding. Huyen explained to him, according to what you've said, Bamboo Pole's evaluation of Her Majesty Empress Wu is quite appropriate. Her Majesty Empress Wu has always abided by the law and disregarded morality. She seems to not bother with trifles normally, but she is actually very strict, both to others and to herself. It wasn't just this time. In the past, Bamboo Pole had also mentioned this point in class, and had even given a few examples. But when Luo Nan thought of Zhang Yingying, he went a bit off track. He really couldn't imagine how that sister, with her flying and bouncing temperament, was able to survive under the pressure of her strict boss. It would be difficult to establish a relevant impression. But now that Huyen had said the same thing, he had no choice but to believe it. Harsh it is. I don't want to go anymore. What does this have to do with compensation? Because of the headquarters. Huyen's words hit the nail on the head. Headquarters took action against you after Her Majesty Empress Wu agreed to protect you from President Ouyang. The situation was critical at the time. Admittedly, Black Beetle was the reason behind it, but an oversight is an oversight. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh to herself and others. Mending the pen after the sheep is lost must be done. Otherwise, even if Yingying is different from ordinary people, it would be very difficult to obtain Her Majesty Empress Wu's agreement to give you a deal worth several million. Luo Nan suddenly realized, no wonder. Otherwise, it could be said that there was no such thing as meat pies falling from the sky in this world. Now the feeling of unease brought about by the generous business rewards vanished like smoke in thin air. So this was exchanged with his life. Of course, Her Majesty Empress Wu's principle of self-discipline and Zhang Yingying's care and concern were still engraved in his heart. And now, after He Yueyin explained the compensation, she changed the topic and entered the main topic. As for this recruitment, it's just as you said. Her Majesty Empress Wu probably doesn't expect you to join the hidden indigo firm. She had Bamboo Pole deliver the message. She probably expressed her attitude more than anything else. What attitude? Her Majesty Empress Wu is well known for pushing down the wall. She has devoted herself to forging a brand new social order these past few years, allowing ability users to seamlessly enter the secular society. Naturally, it is easier for young people to exert influence in promoting and putting her theories into practice. In fact, she is famous for her love of training young people with potential. Brother Bamboo Pole talked about this before? Well, are you saying that Her Majesty Empress Wu is displaying her appreciation for me? He Yueyin let out a rare chuckle. The word display is well used. Luo Nan's mind went in circles. So you're saying that the so-called display isn't for me but for other people? If this wasn't the case, then why would Her Majesty Empress Wu send the message through Bamboo Pole? And why would Bamboo Pole ask you to consult others? This is to release public opinion, to expand its influence, and to declare its attitude to people with intentions. In this way, people like headquarters won't have to consider the factor of Her Majesty Empress Wu's deep involvement if they want to make a move against you. Bamboo Pole is quite right. Public and private matters are different in the end. Nothing is more ideal than balancing public and private matters. Luo Nan finally understood the twists and turns within. He let out a long sigh of relief, but he also had a bit of complex emotions. So you're saying that the so-called recruitment is just an empty title? I say. He Yueyin's voice was gentle as she spoke softly. Mr. Luo shouldn't be unduly humble. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh on herself and others. Her standards are extremely high. If Mr. Luo isn't up to par, then she wouldn't even give you a glance. She wouldn't even put on this sort of attitude. To put it bluntly, this is an expression of goodwill. It's an investment for the future. That's enough, Sister Yueyin. I'm not someone with a heart of glass. I know my own position. I have Her Majesty Empress Wu's explicit words to protect me. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Luo Nan responded with a brisk tone. After dispelling his doubts, he was really embarrassed to take up more of He Yueyin's time. He immediately said, Sister Yueyin, I'm relieved after you explain things. You still have things to do over there, right? Hurry up and do what you need to do. I'm doing homework, and I still have evening classes. It's nothing. It's just some routine work. I've already finished dealing with it. But you've been arranging your homework tightly. Can you handle it? No problem. You don't mind, do you? Luo Nan suddenly recalled that he had repeated Bamboo Pole's example and evaluation to He Yueyin. Those words weren't anything good. Of course, Luo Nan's question was really stupid. And what? Her Majesty Empress Wu is just taking the opportunity to knock me down a bit. Huh. Bamboo Pole certainly counted me in when he told you to consult others. Most of those words were said for me to hear. It's probably because I've been acting too hastily in the branch recently. Sister Yueyin. Luo Nan didn't know what to say for a time. He knew that He Yueyin was under enormous pressure from Bamboo Pole's evaluation. If another extraordinary were to express her opposition, then He Yueyin's handling of matters in the future would become even more burdensome. He Yueyin turned around to comfort him while he was worrying. You know your own position, and so do I. Bamboo Pole said that my goal is much clearer than yours. Actually, what he said isn't correct. Your goal is equally clear. It's just that many aspects are involved in realizing it. It's too complicated between light and dark. It's not easy to start. Yes, that's the logic. He Yueyin's words really spoke to the bottom of Luo Nan's heart. His goal, whether it was to clear his grandfather's name or to protect his mother's work of art, involved many levels and many powers. They were all intertwined with each other. He didn't have the skill to solve this problem. He didn't have the corresponding sharpness to cut through the Gordian knot. It was as if Yuan could hear his thoughts. She said, "Since it's like this, I might as well say a cliché. Sharpening the knife will not delay the work of chopping wood. If you really don't know where to start, then just sharpen the knife. Wait until the blade is sharp, and there will be a day when your worries will be severed." Sister Yuan, I will definitely work hard. Luo Nen couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed when he spoke to this point. Why did he sound like an elementary school student writing a pledge? Yuan didn't mind. She said softly, "Your mental ability to interfere with matter has just manifested. You don't know what to do. You must be careful. If you don't want to go to Bai Xinyan's place, there's no harm in going to Divine Yu Gym. They're quite brilliant at nurturing energy, solidifying the foundation, and cultivating the body. Yes. Gym Master Xiao is truly talented." Luo Nen spoke sincerely. Yuan paused for a moment. Then she suddenly asked, "You're still cultivating the eye's orifice?" Yeah. Gym Master Xiao said that the eye's orifice has just reached small success. It needs to be consolidated until yin and yang are connected from the outside. And then you need to cultivate the ear orifice and the mouth orifice. At the very least, you need to cultivate the 3 essentials. Only then can you proceed to the next step. Yuan gave a light grunt and said, "The 3 essentials of the 9 orifice are to clear the internal organs, solidify the essence and energy, and purify the mind. These are the proper paths of cultivation. There's no harm in cultivating them seriously. But if it's just some bizarre talk, or daydream, then you don't need to pay attention to it." Luo Nen didn't understand what she meant by daydream or daydream for a time. By the time he came back to his senses, Yuan had already said goodnight to him and ended the communication. This was strange. Why did she suddenly say this? Yuan seemed to be quite familiar with Gym Master Xiao. Luo Nen was puzzled. He faintly sensed something. A knock came from the door on the first floor. It was Mo Peng, who had had his fill of playing outside, casually entering the house. Only now did Luo Nen remember that he still needed to investigate the conversation between his aunt and uncle. But when his soul strength covered the area, the 2 elders were already lecturing their son in the living room. There was nothing for him to do for the time being. Luo Nen listened for a few minutes, but he didn't gain anything. He simply collected his mind and went to do his own things. He finished his homework and took out the basic physics exercises prepared by Worker Zhai. He began to ponder and tackle them. Right now, his God gear and body gear were meshed together. His energy flow was dense and comprehensive. If he really put his mind to it, there were very few people who could reach his level of concentration. Soon, 2 hours passed. It was already past 10 o'clock. Luo Nen stretched his back. He followed the Daoyin technique taught to him by Gym Master Xiao. He loosened his joints and relaxed them step by step. His muscles, bones, and skin were wrapped around his body. For a time, muffled sounds rang out incessantly from his body. At the same time, a warm current enshrouded him. It was extremely comfortable. Chapter 348. Night sounds. Luo Nen put everything down and got onto the bed. He stripped down to his underpants, adjusted his breathing, and began his night training. A thin layer of sweat covered his body after half an hour of breathing guidance, but the state of his body and mind had already recovered to their peak. The flame of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered within his brain. Luo Nan's thoughts stirred, and the heart lantern flickered, sending the warm light into his internal organs. Gym Master Xiao once said that after the cultivation of the eye's orifice reached small success, the inner vision would be like the sun and moon illuminating the mountains and rivers. Even if one could not truly see through the wondrous attainments of life without missing anything, one could still pierce through the clouds and break through the mist. Luo Nan saw that the structure of his internal organs had the shape of a rampart under the spiritual light of his internal vision. It was like a high cliff and deep valley, with towering rocks. The disorderly layout was vague. He didn't care about this. He just merged his mind with his eyes. The sun and moon rotated and shone down, fixing on the gate of life in his spine. He burned and refined his essence energy, gradually pouring it into the bottom of the perineum. When the yang energy was full, it naturally surged up and seeped into his internal organs. This time, it was like water sprinkling on lava. Vital energy hissed and boiled. It was like roiling clouds, changing shape in myriad ways. Luo Nen felt such a sign when he burned and refined his essence energy. After a moment of shock, he was delighted. Burning the pill furnace, filling the mountain with smoke. The technique of transforming essence into qi has already reached its peak. The next step is to reach the peak of Kunlun and then open up a field of blessings. No wonder even Master Lien said that we should wait for the torrent to pour down and overflow before making a judgment. The time is right and it's clearly today. It must be known that Luo Nan's body and soul were originally imbalanced. He had no choice but to use all the vital energy in his body to nourish the eye's orifice, forming a body gear. Only then did he have the opportunity to borrow the majestic and vast power of the God gear. If he hadn't comprehended the coupling technique, he might have had to toss and turn for several months. He might even have had to undergo some strengthening surgery in order to maintain that fragile balance. But things in this world always move in the opposite direction when pushed to the extreme. Luo Nan received his mother's blessing, comprehended the coupling technique, and crossed the most difficult juncture. The crisis transformed, and the corresponding benefits were greater. Ordinary people relied on time and effort to cultivate the internal refinement technique. If one wanted to reach the level of burning the pill furnace and filling the mountains with clouds, it was possible to cultivate for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, or even 100 days, a year, or even 3 years. But Luo Nan was here. The power of formatting theory was far too great, and the glacial ocean hung high. Even if he only poured a little and interfered, he would still advance bravely. Ever since the heart lantern of the eye's orifice had broken the boundaries of interference, it had become unstoppable in the short 7 days. With just a few thoughts flashing through his mind, clouds gathered in the middle of his chest and abdomen. They were dyed with 5 different colors. Especially where his liver and gallbladder were, the green aura was the thickest. According to the classical theory of the East, the eye's orifice was like the mouth of a spring, with its source below. The Nan. Oh. Yang. Ancient. The mechanism affected the entire body, including the liver, gallbladder, eyes, fingers, and tendons. It seemed to be bouncing around, but it was actually all connected in one breath. This was what Jim Master Shio meant when he said, "The body is like a mountain range, densely planted with soil. The breath is like flowing water, twisting and turning." My eye's orifice reservoir is finally connected to the source. It's flowing water. Earlier, Luo Nan had exhausted all of his vital energy to open the eye's orifice, barely able to withstand the terrifying pressure of the God Wheel. The iceberg ocean continued to pour soul power into his eye's orifice. His eye's orifice was just like a reservoir with limited capacity. Even with the coupling art, the continuous impacts caused his pupils to crack with electricity. But now, the situation was different. The eye's aperture connected the qi and blood of the liver and gallbladder, and it could also circulate to the fascia of the whole body. From there, the viscera, muscles, bones, skin, and hair could all be digested one by one, and the load capacity would increase dramatically. It would truly become the body chakra, constantly rotating. In this way, it could be said that the inside was connected to the outside, and the bitterness was over before the sweetness came. Just the power of the divine wheel's nourishment alone was enough for him to enjoy for a while. It was midnight, the time when the qi in the liver flowed. After the pleasantly surprised mood passed, Luo Nan suppressed his feelings of joy and calmed his mind. He adjusted the flow of energy more and more carefully, wanting to complete the task. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Luo Nan waited for the yin and yang of the liver and gallbladder to automatically adjust the fire of the heart, the water of the kidneys, and the energy to circulate. Then, Luo Nan woke up. He opened his eyes and his thoughts stirred. He had his own response, and he knew that it was around 3 in the morning. Right now, he was overflowing with energy, and his mind was healthy and refreshed. It was no longer suitable for him to sleep, but this wasn't his usual rhythm of work and rest. Just as he was mulling over what he should do, his mind stirred. Someone was talking nearby, and his name was mentioned. With the level of Luo Nan's mental senses, he could pry into the information of all living beings within a radius of several kilometers. It was just that this information was far too complex, and it had the effect of accelerating the growth of his soul strength. It increased the burden, so Luo Nan normally maintained the radius of his mental senses at around 10 meters. Most of the time, he was in a standby state, only reacting to evil thoughts, ominous intents, and other dangers. But perhaps it was because his cultivation had just advanced, but the sensitivity of his mental senses had increased by a large margin. The way it appeared was quite different from before. His mind was like a calm lake, reflecting several stars. It was like the reflection of the distant starry sky. Then the corresponding information joined together and transformed, forming an even more concrete figure. The words they exchanged were all reflected in the lake of his mind. Oh, it's aunt and uncle? That's right. Who else could it be? The two elders were in their bedroom. They leaned side by side against the headboard, conversing in low voices. It could be seen that they hadn't slept at all last night. They had been conversing all this time. Though Luo Nan possessed inconceivable mental senses, he normally wouldn't go so far as to eavesdrop. He just heard his own name, and he did that stupid thing at night. He couldn't help but feel a bit guilty, and he was even more curious. I'll eavesdrop just once. Tonight. Luo Nan found an excuse for himself, and he truly used his heart to sense. This time, he was like an incorporeal specter, lurking in his aunt and uncle's bedroom. He could hear and see, and it was as if he was there in person. Luo Nan was already unable to recall what they had said before, but the first words that truly entered his ears caused his mind to be stimulated. Could it be that Dad, or perhaps Zhongheng's friends have come to Xia City? They've been in the wilderness for 20 years. They've gone against civilization, and they're on sensitive projects. It's already good enough that they haven't become enemies. Why would they come over? The one speaking in front was his aunt, Luo Shuqing. The dad she spoke of was naturally Luo Nan's grandfather, Luo Yuandao. Zhongheng was Luo Nan's father, Luo Zhongheng. From Luo Nan's perspective, these two names were the ones he cared about the most, even though the direction of his emotions were quite different. He immediately paid 120% of his attention. Luo Shuqing was a bit dissatisfied when she heard her husband's response. Don't play dumb. You know who I'm talking about. Yes, I know. But I checked the entry and exit records of the airport. Yan Yonghua has been flying back and forth across the Pacific Ocean recently. He's been to Luo City at least 5 or 6 times. The trouble he's gotten into clearly comes from within Quantum Corporation. Do you think they have influence over Quantum Corporation? They? Who was they? Was it related to his grandfather and father? Luo Nan didn't hear it, but he knew that the topic these two elders were talking about right now involved their family friend, Yan Yonghua. It made sense. Back then, Yan Yonghua had humiliated his family in front of everyone at the restaurant. He had vowed in all sincerity that he would take back the reputation of his old man, Yan Hong. Whether or not Yan Yonghua's words were reasonable, the endorsement of Quantum Corporation really did give people a lot of pressure. A few days passed, and this brother suddenly vanished without a trace. It was hard not to be suspicious of his anticlimactic ending. Luo Nan didn't completely understand the ins and outs of this matter, but compared to other more important matters, he didn't have the mind to ponder over these small details. But from the perspective of his aunt and uncle, the tiger skin of Quantum Corporation was still quite a deterrent to the secular world. Even if their family was considered a relatively wealthy middle-class family, they weren't on the same level when compared to a capital giant like Quantum Corporation. If things didn't go well, their family would be ruined. Luo Nan couldn't help but feel a bit ashamed when he thought of this. His aunt and uncle had been shouldering such a large amount of pressure for the past month, but they had never mentioned it to him. He was quite careless. He had forgotten about it many times. What method should he think of to appease his two elders? Luo Nan was pondering over this matter when he heard his aunt sneer, "Are you looking down on vagrants? I, as an HR employee, know that vagrants have been returning to the city with great momentum in recent years. A portion of them erased their criminal records and transformed into big bosses. This isn't just one or two examples." His uncle sighed. "Then you're counting on a former vagrant boss who erased his criminal record to come out and help?" "I didn't say that." His uncle pulled open the bedside table and took out an electronic cigarette that had been sealed for a long time. He wanted to put it in his mouth, but he stopped and held it in his hand. "I'd rather they stay in the wilderness forever. These people are used to the law of the jungle, and religion is involved. There has never been a lack of madmen and ambitious people. The old man is still alive. He's a symbol at the very least. He's a constraint. I don't think they'll talk reason with us once the situation changes. If they join forces with the powers in the city, I'm afraid things will get even more lively." Luo Shuqing was quite vigilant. "They're looking for you again?" "They haven't met, but they've called a few times. They're asking for help in changing data and the like. Whether they succeed or not, they're very polite." "You're right. They're inclined to enter the city." The focus of Luo Shuqing's attention had already changed. "What about Nannan? Did they make contact with Nannan? Do you mean to say that Wu Jiong?" His uncle finally put the electronic cigarette in his mouth. The vapor evaporated and he sighed. "I don't know. I really don't know." The husband and wife were no longer in the mood to talk in the bedroom. They just endured like this, letting the pressure of silence slowly accumulate. Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts lingered for a few minutes before he felt very oppressed. He quietly withdrew. Luo Nan was stupefied after his senses withdrew. His aunt and uncle had guessed Her Majesty Empress Wu's origins due to problems with the source of their information, but their direction was completely wrong. But the information within their words made Luo Nan understand that in this world, in a certain corner of the boundless wilderness, there were some people who possessed a strange and intimate relationship with his grandfather and father. The wilderness? Vagrants? All right, he suddenly pulled out another thread. It seemed to be very far away, but it seemed to be very heavy behind it. Luo Nan lay on his bed and looked at the ceiling. His leisurely mood of looking for trouble instantly transformed into a myriad of thoughts, a feeling of impatience and depression. There were too many things he needed to do, but it was hard to accomplish them. He thought about it and realized that the little bit of internal refinement he had just obtained was nothing to be happy about. Chapter 349. Luo Nan's mind was still a mess even after being in a daze for a long time. The hour hand was already pointing to 4 o'clock. Another hour passed unknowingly. Luo Nan was in a bad mood. His mind was originally in an extremely clear state, but now it had been stirred into a pot of porridge. This won't do. Luo Nan tried to sever his terrible state of mind. He thought of He Yuan's teachings and immediately murmured, "Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood. Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood. Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood." He recited this proverb over a dozen times like a chant, forcefully replacing his chaotic thoughts. In the end, he was a bit tired. Luo Nan used the back of his hand to press his forehead. His state of mind gradually calmed down. He didn't have any new experiences, but his turbid thoughts gradually became clear. Sister Yuan's incantation was quite considerate. Actually, he recited the incantation 1,000 times and thought of 10,000 countermeasures. In the end, it all boiled down to one sentence. "You're not an extraordinary." In recent months, he had followed He Yuan to grasp the world order in and out of the psychic wave network. He had followed Bamboo Pole to learn the notes of the most important people in the world. Wasn't this principle what he had learned? To put it bluntly, the inner world was a simple society built by a group of inhumans who had awakened their abilities. Even though they were influenced by the secular world, money, resources, and connections played a large role. In the end, personal strength was still the most important. Why did Bamboo Pole want him to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu? It was because Her Majesty Empress Wu was an extraordinary. Her strength was profound, her resources were abundant, and she was revered by others. She could handle matters that Luo Nan was unable to handle, and she could solve problems that Luo Nan was unable to solve. In this sense, Her Majesty Empress Wu could be swapped with any other extraordinary. The result would be the same. At most, the difference would be whether or not they were easy to serve. Of course, if Luo Nan himself was an extraordinary, then there would be no need for a swap. Most things would be impossible to happen. Even if they did happen, they would quickly dissolve. This was the special status of extraordinaries. If Luo Nan could solve it himself, he naturally wouldn't want to do it for someone else. But the reality was that he was still far from being an extraordinary. Right now, he could barely be considered a blunt blade. He needed to grind the blade to an unstoppable edge, and he needed to smash a lot of hard work. Yuan used the proverb, "Sharpening the blade won't delay the chopping of wood," to advise him. She was mostly worried that Luo Nan would lose his patience and confidence due to the difficult and tedious process. Luo Nan wasn't that frivolous and useless, but it would be a lie to say that he was extremely patient. He was willing to put in blood, sweat, and tears for the sharpening knife. No matter how hard it was, he could support it. But if this process was a clumsy, slow, and meticulous process, he would not be able to stand it. Her grandfather, who was on the verge of death, could not wait any longer, and neither could the ferocious enemy. He didn't want to leave behind irreparable regrets, and he didn't want his head to be chopped off by a powerful enemy before he succeeded. Harder, faster. This was the cultivation rhythm that Luo Nan hoped for. To do this, he could only rely on two things. One was formatting theory and the corresponding coupling method. The other was the internal cultivation method that Gym Master Xiao had imparted to him, which was to nurture one's essence and qi. The latter was personally guided by Hall Master Xiao, so the route was clear and orderly. There was no need to worry about making a mistake, making it the most efficient. However, this kind of internal refinement technique, be it the breathing or the opening of acupoints, was very particular about fire control and could not be rash. Just like this moment, Luo Nan had just brought the eye's orifice to perfection, and it was no longer suitable for him to make hasty movements. He needed to calm down for several days before planning his next move. Then, there was only one thing left for him to figure out and achieve some results. Formatting theory. Luo Nan knew very well that the astonishing progress of his internal refinement cultivation was due to the grinding and influence of formatting theory, transforming the powerful potential energy of the vast glacial ocean. Now that the cultivation of the eye's orifice was complete, he still needed to rely on formatting theory for the next step of cultivation. No matter how one looked at it, formatting theory was his foundation. He couldn't slack off in the related research. And there was a state that was the most suitable for pondering over formatting theory. The time was 4:10. Luo Nan looked at his daily schedule through the hexaear. There was still around an hour before the normal morning exercise time. Luo Nan estimated the time limit, but he didn't get up. He just squinted his eyes and silently cried out, "Come out!" The void chains trembled, and a pulling force rose out of thin air. It pulled his soul out of his body with a jolt. Yes, what Luo Nan needed to do was to go into an out-of-body state. Formatting theory itself was flawed, and the hidden dangers were great. The unconventional increase in soul strength led to an imbalance between body and soul. And the time when the increase was the fiercest was often when the soul was in an out-of-body state. Ever since the incident at Frost River Reality, Luo Nan's situation with the imbalance between body and soul had reached a critical level. He had no choice but to seal this method and not use it again. But was formatting theory still formatting theory if it couldn't increase soul strength? Luo Nan had inherited his grandfather's theory. He had the desire to reform and perfect it. This was a process of constant trial and error. How could he make mistakes? Naturally, he had to make a mistake in order to correct it. In the past, Luo Nan's body and soul were imbalanced. His condition was critical, and he lost the space to make mistakes. But now his cultivation had advanced, and his body gear was constantly rotating. His foundation had become more solid, and his ability to deal with risks had greatly increased. Some things needed to be put on the agenda. If he didn't act now, would he have to wait for death to come? Would he have to close his eyes and wait for death? Luonan didn't want to close his eyes and wait for death. He wanted to open his eyes and look at the world. He wanted to use the perspective of formatting theory to make scientific judgments and then use practice to verify the results. He pushed forward layer by layer like this, using the greatest effort and the fastest speed to climb to the level of extraordinary. I can do it. I must do it. Luonan's conviction gradually became clear. The soul body floating outside his body was like a fish. It gently swayed and submerged into the boundless and boundless sea of the mind. The range of his senses instantly expanded tenfold. 100-fold. His thoughts stirred slightly, and he looked at his seemingly sleeping fleshly body. He also swept his gaze over his silent and sleepless elder. His soul body then flashed and submerged into the void. Without the burden of his fleshly body, the movement speed of his soul body only depended on the method and technique he used to interfere with space. It wasn't strange for him to travel several kilometers with a single thought. In the blink of an eye, Luonan was far away from the community he was in. He went deep into the depths of the metropolis that was about to wake up. His mind wandered through the metropolis. The feeling of familiarity and strangeness increased layer by layer. In the past, every time Luonan's soul left his body, it was always during critical and pressing moments. It was rare for him to purely observe and feel like this. The life sketches of all living beings appeared one after another within the range of his senses. Together, they formed a deep starry sky that continued to expand. The living starry sky and the true night sky interweaved to form a labyrinth on the mental and material planes. There might even be unknown treasures hidden within. This was an experience that was hard to come by under normal circumstances. Luonan wasn't bewitched by the labyrinth. He quickly confirmed his direction and moved like a ghost in the night. He was hidden and then disappeared, but he advanced in a straight line. He didn't avoid tall buildings, flying cars, or light rails. He passed right through them. It was 4:20 in the morning. A mere 10 minutes later, Luonan's soul body was already flying above the Pingjiang district. The campus of Acumen College and the towering buildings of Cloud City Water Village entered the range of his senses. Chapter 350. Luonan was shocked after confirming the time. His aunt's house was approximately 80 kilometers away from Acumen College. Given the city's speed limit, the flying car would arrive in an hour. He had only spent 10 minutes just now. In other words, the flying speed of his soul body was close to 500 kilometers per hour. Luonan had gotten a rough sense of the flying speed of his soul when he first realized the out-of-body state. He just felt that it was fast, but he never expected it to be this fast. It must be known that he was just casually flying. He was far from reaching his limits. It was completely possible for him to increase his speed by a large margin if he truly exerted his strength. Perhaps it was catalyzed by his progress during this period of time. The radius of the main city area of Xia City and the satellite cities was no more than 300 to 400 kilometers. In other words, he could easily reach any location in Xia City within an hour. It was also possible for him to travel a full circle in Xia City in a single night. He could even travel several thousand kilometers. This was the marvels of the out-of-body state. Luonan just didn't know if there would be any problems with the order frame formed by the God Gear and Body Gear if his soul body was too far away. Luonan immediately slowed down the flying speed of his soul. He divided a bit of his mental energy to sense the changes in his fleshly body 80 kilometers away. The out-of-body state had quite a large effect on the order frame of Luonan's body and soul. The pressure of soul strength on his body was practically zero, but it had also separated from the external neuron. It was no longer the thick and orderly structure of a vast ocean of icebergs. The God Gear didn't live up to its name. Luonan tried to activate the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, but there was no response. Only now was he convinced that a corresponding material carrier was needed in order to effectively interfere with reality on the mental plane. It was just like Luonan's order frame. No matter how strong the God Gear was, it was useless without the coordination of the body gear. Luonan couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. This way, the actual use of the out-of-body state was rather limited. He needed to prepare for a rainy day. He needed to make a few more human-faced arachnids for backup before the Wraith sign returned. Luonan pondered over this matter, but he had some doubts. Were mentally enhanced ability users like Old Man Yu and Mr. Bai people who undoubtedly possessed the ability of out-of-body state? Were their out-of-body states the same? If not, how did they display their abilities normally? He thought left and right, but he was unable to grasp the gist of it. He wanted to give He Yuan a suggestion to add an out-of-body state application course. In any case, it was impossible to solve this problem tonight. Luonan calmed his mind, discarding the useless, distracting thoughts. His soul body flickered, and when it reappeared, he was already in the air above the buildings of Cloud City Water Village. He locked onto the observation platform above Ocean Sky Cloud City, and he floated down. At 4 o'clock in the morning, there would naturally be no one on the observation deck. It was cold and silent. Though Luonan's soul strength did not affect the material plane, it collided with the consciousness of a living being on the mental plane. In the central crystal pillar of Ocean Sky Cloud City, the mutant devil ray that was originally suspended in the water and resting suddenly became excited. Its huge flat body swayed, and as it spun in the air habitually, it was like a huge drill that was rapidly moving upwards. It rapidly advanced towards the top of the crystal pillar, where the heavenly ocean lake was located on the observation deck. Since there was such a ferocious creature entrenched here, Fairski Cloud couldn't let his guard down. Every night, there were professionals on duty. Inside and outside the crystal pillar, there were also different types of surveillance cameras at work. As soon as the devil ray moved, its special posture triggered the alarm of the surveillance system. Groans could be heard everywhere in the building's central control room. This monster is going crazy again. It's hundreds of thousands just for one round of trouble. Hurry up and release the baffle. The so-called baffle was a temporary defensive device installed by Cloud City Water Village after the devil ray smashed through the tempered glass at the bottom of the heavenly ocean lake. It had no other use than to prevent the devil ray from smashing a huge hole in the heavenly ocean lake. Luonan could feel the chaos within the building. He felt quite embarrassed, so he used psychic waves to support himself and pacify the devil ray's restless emotions. The devil ray's intelligence was passable. It had once been suppressed by the high-imitation human-faced arachnid, but under Luonan's control, it felt all sorts of novel, interesting, and extremely powerful states. As a result, it was both respectful and fearful of Luonan's special psychic wave frequency. Right now, it was already ranked as a staff member of the societal format diagram. According to the definition of the order, it could be called a believer or a follower. Luonan's telepathic thoughts descended, and the devil ray didn't dare to resist. It immediately stopped its momentum and turned its body. It saw the fish and shrimps that were fleeing in all directions, alarmed by its actions. It immediately swallowed a bunch of them and let out some blood over at Fairski Cloud City. There was no need to mention just how great of a loss the devil ray, which had woken up in the middle of the night, would bring to the relevant parties. Luonan's soul body stayed on the viewing platform, observing the wetland jungle to the north of Acumen College. He remained motionless for a long time. There was gear within the jungle, but the viewing platform was over a dozen kilometers away from the wetland jungle. The sky was dark and silent, making it difficult for ordinary people to see it. Luonan could see it. A distance of over a dozen kilometers had already far exceeded the limits of Luonan's mental senses when his body and soul were one. Back then, he had used the coupling of the God Gear and Body Gear to stimulate the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to rub his psychic light and illuminate the earth below. Only then was he able to bring gear within the jungle into his clairvoyance. Now that his mind had wandered to this point, the coupling of the God Gear and Body Gear was no longer possible. However, after his out-of-body state, the range of his senses had increased explosively by 10 times. He was able to see clearly under pure observation. The problem was that no matter how much he observed, it was hard to trigger the wondrous sensation of gear being the eye of heaven and earth, the universe grand format. This result was not unexpected at all. From the moment Luo Nan's heart lantern illuminated gear, he truly understood that the wondrous aspects contained within gear could not be seen by the naked eye. Mental senses could not illuminate it clearly. Only the two modes of sight and mental senses, through coupling, could cross and grind each other. Only then could one touch the reality behind the surface and determine how the law and order operated, transformed, and nurtured within the void of heaven and earth. Pure mental senses were still lacking in meaning. If it were possible, Luo Nan obviously wished to truly go to the viewing platform and observe gear with clairvoyance day and night. He wanted to feel and comprehend the wondrous aspects within. But this week, whether it was the viewing platform or the interior of gear, there were demonic shadows flickering one after another. It was a bad mood. Whatever. Let's just get closer and observe. Luo Nan's out-of-body state of mind had absolutely not chosen this place on a whim. He had a clear goal and plan. His soul body flew away from Ocean Sky Cloud City, and with another thought he shifted to the wetland jungle. Gear was right in front of him. Right now, the lights within the building were completely extinguished. The pitch-black cave was completely devoid of people. Entering this place at this time and in this sort of situation required a bit of courage. Well, if someone really did come, Luo Nan did not mind testing the quality of this fellow. Unfortunately, there was no one. Luo Nan's soul body passed through the wall and entered the interior of gear. His mental senses naturally covered every space and every nook and cranny of the 12 floors, leaving nothing out. He could do all of this when his soul and body were one. He could do it even better because he had the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, which was more suited to the environment of gear. But it was still the same old saying. There were people in front of him, and there were eyes behind his head. He could not act willfully. Only when his internal refinement was successful and he reckoned that he could resist the pressure of the explosive increase in his soul strength could this matter be accomplished. Chapter 351. The wetland jungle during the early hours of the morning was perhaps the quietest time of the day. The activity of the birds and beasts in the forest had already dropped to the lowest level. Most of the sounds transmitted to the interior of the building had been isolated. In such an environment, even the slightest abnormality would be magnified, giving people an unusual feeling. Luo Nan's soul body remained motionless as he carefully experienced it. A dozen or so seconds later, he was convinced that the chill was not an illusion. It even possessed a certain mode of operation. It was like a spiraling strand of air that traveled back and forth within the building of gear. Moreover, as the chill circulated, the fine dripping sound of the building of gear accompanied it from beginning to end. Perhaps it was because he had heard it for a long time, but he always felt that there was a subtle connection between the two. It was so subtle that it could give birth to an illusion at any time. Luo Nan's out-of-body state allowed the precision of his mental senses to climb to the highest peak. Otherwise, let alone this connection, he might not even be able to detect the hidden chill. That's right. Luo Nan liked this sort of discovery. This detail was quite in line with his research and judgment of the mysteries of gear. It was a good start for his exploration of the spirit wander. He nearly stayed here to do further research, but his brain heated up for a few seconds. In the end, he remembered the main objective of today's operation. He could only suppress his impulse and make his incorporeal soul body penetrate through the ground. He advanced toward the central control room on the 4th underground floor. The feeling of using a soul body to penetrate through walls and into the ground was very marvelous. His soul body relied on mental senses. Ordinary matter would not cause any interference, but Luo Nan was used to the senses of a human body. He could not help but have some knowledge obstructions in his mind. In his eyes, the earth and steel structure formed layer after layer of shadows. They were like thick clouds that assaulted his face. At first glance, they looked majestic, but when he collided with them, they vanished like smoke. It was to the point where he nearly lost his sense of direction. He was unable to distinguish whether he was in the sky or in the ground. This sort of feeling triggered a memory from the bottom of his heart. A week ago, a similar scene had occurred, but it was more realistic. The grayish-white clouds penetrated with a bloody glow, and they assaulted his face just like now. They presented him with an inconceivably vast world. Today, Luo Nan quietly came precisely to retrace that inconceivable experience. He had wanted to do this a long time ago. It was just that the Xia City branch kept a close eye on him during this period of time due to the mess that couldn't be cleaned up. He was practically protected 24 hours a day. He was sent to school and picked up after school. Xue Lei hated that he could not leave the campus at all. When he returned home, there was a sentry shift outside in the middle of the night. Needless to say, Gear's construction had always been in the middle of construction. Every passerby's horse powder and ink covered the field. Inside and outside, there were surveillance cameras. There really were eyes on all sides. They couldn't split themselves into two. They simply couldn't find an opportunity. Now that he finally had the qualifications to leave his body, he naturally came over to try it out. Up until now, the development of the situation was very much to his liking. Because he wanted to trace back, he had purposely gone to Ocean Sky Cloud City to observe from afar. And after arriving at Gear, the first place he chose was the starting point of his previous experience, the central control room located on the 4th underground floor. Luo Nan had already seen it yesterday afternoon. The central control room had been renovated, and a brand new console had been installed. The holographic projection showed that the equipment was in a standby state right now. Only 2 or 3 electronic lights flickered. Luo Nan stood before the operating console. The memories in his mind were like wave after wave of returning tides at the mouth of the sea. They surged and surged passionately, causing what was originally a short scene to be like a vast expanse of space, boundless and endless. Luo Nan was clearly a soul body, but he still instinctively took a deep breath. Now is the time to witness a miracle. Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts touched the console, and he extended a force towards the inner layer to capture the feeling within his memories. The console was ice cold. The electronic lights flickered. Then, there was no more response. Luo Nan waited for a full 20 seconds before he dared to confirm that his attempt at tracing back had met with the most ruthless failure. How could this be? Luo Nan still remembered the experience of that day. He still remembered the entire process of being moved from the central control room to the tree hole 1,000 meters away. He remembered that he saw the console being blasted into ruins back then. That fellow called Tank had used this to destroy the fire safety module. He tried to reactivate it, so he used the external neuron to connect directly to the underlying system. When he connected to the energy module, a chaotic cloud suddenly flew about. That's right, the external neuron. Luo Nan's soul body circled in place 5 or 6 times, but he still found it hard to dispel his feelings of vexation. He was truly muddle-headed. The external neuron was extremely likely to be the primer, the key, in the situation back then. Otherwise, wouldn't it be possible for anyone to come in and pry into the astonishing secrets of Gear? His mother, who designed Gear all those years ago, and the one who possessed the external neuron, used this train of thought as insurance. This was the most reasonable choice. He just wanted to open the treasure, but he forgot the key. This trip was a waste. He would look for an opportunity next time. Hold on. It was only 4:30 in the morning. There was still time. With the flying speed of his soul body, he could completely make a round trip. Luo Nan's soul body flew up with a single thought. It passed through the layers of earth, stone, and metal structures, directly leaping into the air above the building of Gear. Luo Nan originally wanted to leave immediately, but he suddenly felt something as his soul body traveled through the interior of the building. The chill that lingered in the air seemed to cut into many parts of his soul body, rippling with ripples. The feeling was quite marvelous. Luo Nan couldn't help but think of the question from before. His soul body stopped, and his mental senses naturally covered the entire building. He took the entire structure of Gear into his heart. There seemed to be no end to the marvels of Gear. On the outside, Gear was a tiny component that was seamlessly embedded within the heaven and earth format. On the inside, there were subtle and exquisite components. Together, they formed a harmonious whole. According to the direction of Luo Nan's recent studies, gear could be described as a precise operating mechanical system. Luo Nan had been observing endlessly over the past few days, dividing them one by one. He was able to roughly discern that there was a central control room, an underground laboratory, an above-ground laboratory, an activity room, an atrium, and other relatively independent areas within this building. They were all components of this machine, and they realized their respective functions. The machine was endlessly operating, but each component was fixed. This created a problem. If the components didn't move, then what moved? A proper engineer might go crazy when faced with this problem, but Luo Nan had been continuously influenced by the way of thinking of the inner world over the past few days. He very naturally switched to a different train of thought. If the components didn't move, then what moved was some sort of supernatural power. Some knowledge of the mystic arts was involved in the cultural classes he attended. For example, Eastern diagrams, Western magical arrays, and a few other similar things. Ability users used materials, temperature, air pressure, topography, and so on to set things up. They were able to draw upon the flow of energy to construct the marvelous structure of condensed air. The researchers of the society even added the legendary 8-formation diagram of Wuho as a reference. Luo Nan didn't care about the 8-formation diagram of Wuho. He was just driven by a new thought that popped up in his mind. He flew up a certain distance and looked down from a distance. He scanned the building from the inside to the outside several times, using this to open up a new train of thought. He thought, isn't that coldness growing in the dark the flow of energy? According to what he learned from Worker Zhai over the past few days, a normal mechanical system should have a prime mover providing power, a working part realizing its functions, and a transmission device effectively connecting the power and working parts. Then there was the control and operation part and other auxiliary components. Making Luo Nan, a mediocre engineer apprentice, distinguish the marvelous design of this seamless mechanical structure was truly a difficult task. But with the flow of energy, Luo Nan was able to roughly determine where the energy was being transmitted, where the energy was being stored, and where the energy was being used. Luo Nan's mental senses immediately followed the coldness of the energy flow inside and out. He smoothed it out a few times, eliminating the components one by one. He gradually narrowed the range until he reached the westernmost side of gear. This place was an atrium with a diameter of 12 meters and a depth of 50 meters. According to Luo Nan's perception, the layers of coldness of the energy flow had different sources, but in the end, they all accumulated and revolved here. Therefore, the drip 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 was the clearest here. Luo Nan's soul body sank directly into the atrium area. He entered and sensed with the answer in mind. Sure enough, the psychic pressure of the flow of energy flow was a level higher than in other parts of the building. When Luo Nan's soul body cut in, the mental plane clearly rippled. It was like a stone thrown into a deep well. Luo Nan was able to confirm that the energy flow accumulated here was exquisite and subtle. And reality told him that if it weren't for the fact that his soul was in an out-of-body state, greatly increasing the precision of his senses, he probably wouldn't have been able to capture the changes within. But what happened after the energy flow accumulated and revolved? Why did Luo Nan have an impression of a deep well? It was because the atrium seemed to be lacking something relative to the amount of energy that had accumulated. It lacked the order to control the energy flow. It lacked the decisive element. Was it the external neuron? Or perhaps... Luo Nan floated in the atrium and pondered silently for a moment. Then he suddenly gave his soul body a boost. With his current abilities, doing the relevant boost was as easy as drinking cold water. The visualization diagram of a tetrahedron, an inscribed sphere, and an inscribed sphere immediately appeared in the void, wrapping the soul body within. When this diagram manifested in the atrium, Luo Nan discovered that the surrounding slightly cold energy flow was stirred. The flow of energy increased in speed. It passed through and coiled inside and outside the diagram, moving step by step. With the stirring pole, the accumulated energy flow became much more orderly, and it became much more solid. especially some scattered information. Because of this, they gathered together and gradually formed logic. There's a way. Luo Nan's senses toward the circulation of energy flow grew clearer and clearer. Luo Nan's mental senses were even painted with a smear of color. A slightly grayish glow gradually filled in. Luo Nan was no stranger to this. Chapter 352. The grayish-white radiance was a form of encouragement for Luo Nan. He couldn't help thinking, could it be that he didn't need the external neuron to reproduce the situation back then? Luo Nan wanted to know more, so his mental senses naturally expanded outwards. But he discovered in the next moment that his soul strength was being restrained. It was being restrained within the atrium. It was unable to break through the outer wall no matter what. It just spun within the atrium, its speed rapidly rising. Soul strength didn't have kinetic energy. Soul strength didn't count as a vector. These were matters on the philosophical level within the society. Luo Nan was unable to give an accurate definition. But whether it was a feeling or an illusion, his soul strength undoubtedly displayed a similar state. This made him think of his junior high physics class. He had seen particle accelerators. Charged particles repeatedly accelerated within a vacuum electric field, accumulating more and more energy before finally achieving a bombardment. This was what Luo Nan felt right now. His soul strength was restrained in this manner. It spun, forming and enduring enormous waves of psychic pressure, each higher than the last. It was to the extent that he gradually lost precise perception of the material world. Instead, the structure of the mental plane was forced to emerge. 1,000 layers of curtains flew in the air. They warped with the rising psychic pressure. Those far away were pulled closer, and those near were thrown away. It looked like a chaotic mess. But for some unknown reason, after a few changes, the thousands of curtains actually interweaved into a relatively stable structure. No matter how much the mental plane warped, the main body rarely changed. Even though it was still complex to the point of making one go crazy. This scene seems familiar. Luo Nan decisively gave up on analyzing. The deeper he went into understanding the mental plane, the more he realized the profoundness and difficulty within. There were practically no limits to it. It really could drain a person's energy dry. Right now, he really didn't have the spare mental energy to consider other directions. Luo Nan's soul strength had already been catalyzed to a certain limit after the continuous rotation of acceleration. Soon, his perception on the mental plane began to collapse. Then even his perception of rotation and pressurization were lost. The corresponding thoughts were obliterated. It was like a skyscraper with its structural framework erased. It instantly collapsed and fell apart. Luo Nan suddenly sunk into a field of primal chaos. If one were to say that a bit of consciousness still remained in this situation, then it was probably just existence itself. The world came to a standstill. Then it exploded. There was an indescribable period of time. Perhaps it was a second. Perhaps it was an hour. Luo Nan was completely unaware of what had happened. By the time he regained his basic senses, he sensed that the feeble sense of existence that was left in him was expanding rapidly in the form of greed. All the senses and thinking abilities that he had lost earlier were being retrieved and digested again. As for the spiritual pressure that kept rising, it disappeared without a trace. His soul body also became light and clean, transparent from inside out. Everything was going back to normal, everything was getting better, but everything was different again. In fact, a brand new world had already appeared before Luo Nan's eyes. The grayish-white light appeared once again, and as a common base color, it outlined a blurry and boundless silhouette. When he looked closer, he saw layers of clouds, smoke, and ice crystals. Between the cracks of the clouds, there was a blood-red color flowing. It seemed that a raging fire was burning in the lower regions. Luo Nan stared at all of this. He spent some time to confirm that it wasn't an illusion. It wasn't a memory. It was a scene that happened in the present and was absorbed by his mental senses. This wasn't the first time he had seen a similar scene. Although the process last week was different, he still immersed himself in the scene. He went deep within and underwent a short yet inconceivable journey through the clouds. Success. This was the place. Luo Nan wanted to raise his arms and shout, but unfortunately, this wasn't something that his soul body could do. He could only settle for the next best thing. He fiercely pounced forward to welcome the astral wind that was wrapped in ice particles in his memories. Wait a minute. Where was the wind? Luo Nan finally discovered an anomaly. He tried to control his soul body to penetrate deep into the endless layers of clouds in front of him. But no matter how much strength he exerted, he was unable to get even an inch closer. It was as if there was an incorporeal glass in front of him that split the two sides apart. Then another problem popped up. Luo Nan discovered that he was unable to enjoy the panoramic view of his soul body. Instead, he was restricted. It was similar to a bird's eye view. Combined with the feeling of the incorporeal glass, it was like sitting on an airplane. He was separated from the thick glass of the porthole to survey the boundless sea of clouds. If Luo Nan hadn't experienced this for the first time, he would probably praise the marvelous scene before his eyes. But there were no ifs in this world. There was only reality. This situation where he was stuck between a rock and a hard place was absolutely not what Luo Nan wanted. Moreover, this extended to a problem. He wasn't in the atrium of Gears building right now. He hadn't moved into the cloud world. Then where was he? Luo Nan felt an irresistible repulsive force as soon as this thought arose. This force wasn't polite at all. It slammed him down from his position that was infinitely close to the cloud world. Then the world spun around him, and he could not help but shout. By the time he came back to his senses, the world had returned to its most ordinary appearance. He returned to the atrium of Gears building. It's really Motherf asterisk Ker. Luo Nan forcibly erased the dirty words and thoughts in between. He had nothing to say when faced with his mother's masterpiece. He could only sulk with himself. He returned to the normal world, and his panoramic senses returned as well. They covered the interior and exterior of Gear, and the relevant structure of the atrium, the gathering energy, and all of it were incorporated into his clairvoyance. Did he become obedient now? Luo Nan gritted his teeth in hatred. He was driven by his emotions, and the range of his mental senses simply exploded once more. He had broken free from the restraints of the atrium, and he was no longer isolated by the barrier. A retaliatory rebound was a matter of course. The feelers of his mental senses extended 15 kilometers in the blink of an eye, and they extended to a 20-kilometer radius. They easily covered Acumen College, and they even included the building complex of Cloud City Water Village. They even included most of the large living district. When Luo Nan woke up from his own emotions, he was immediately stupefied. This wasn't his directional clairvoyance from Ocean Sky Cloud City. This was an omnidirectional radiation. A 20-kilometer radius was an area of over 1,000 square kilometers. The entire Pingjiang district wasn't this big. There was also the enormous space between heaven and earth. Even if it was a simplified version of the life sketches that only involved information related to living beings, the terrifying amount of information was still an astronomical figure. There was an instant when Luo Nan thought that he was about to explode. He used all of his strength to restrain his out-of-control mental senses to reduce the impact. But soon, the latest feedback arrived. It seemed to be very illusory. Chapter 353. His mental senses covered an area of over 1,000 square kilometers. At the same time, he drew the life sketches of hundreds of thousands of living beings. He projected 1 trillion stars. The range and level of his senses were outstanding. He could not determine the limits of his soul body's endurance. However, the first impression Luo Nan got was far from perfect. He could not help but think, could it be that formatting theory was stimulated by studying here with his mother? Could it be that formatting theory had an explosion of uncontrollable growth? Luo Nan knew that there were risks in the out-of-body state, but this extent of expansion and this explosive rhythm far exceeded his expectations. Even if he had the external neuron to prop up the God gear, even if his liver energy was leaking and the body gear was constantly rotating, his fleshly body might not be able to support it. He did not dare to stay in the atrium for long. He immediately soared up. However, he felt a subtle feeling when he intersected with the residual energy that had yet to dissipate. A thought suddenly popped up in his mind. It seemed that the changes in his soul body were quite large this time. The details of his mental senses were abnormal. They far exceeded any of his previous experiences. Perhaps it was not just an increase in quantity. It involved other aspects. Unfortunately, the details were too many and too trivial. The feeling was fuzzy, and he was unable to make a judgment in a short amount of time. Luo Nan could not figure it out, so he did not force it. The appearance of a problem often led to other problems. Right now, he needed to return home as soon as possible. Putting aside the external neuron, he needed to confirm whether or not the structure of his body and soul had collapsed into imbalance once more. Luo Nan's thoughts spun in the gears, and he set foot on his return journey. He flew under the gloomy dawn sky, and his mental senses had long since covered the path back. Within his all-pervasive penetrative senses, skyscrapers were like gathering smoke. They were nearly nothingness. Luo Nan charged forward in a straight line. His flying soul was like a phantom, almost like a ghost. The more he did this, the more he felt that something was wrong. His soul strength had certainly grown, but after a period of buffering, Luo Nan felt that the amount of growth was not as terrifying as it had been before. At most, the Wraith sign had hunted once and fed him back. After he achieved the body gear, there was room for this level of growth. But at the same time, the range of his senses, which constantly changed as he moved at high speed, became more substantial. Not only did it break through a radius of 20 kilometers, but it was even slowly growing. Where was the foundation of this growth? Luo Nan's mind was distracted, but his speed far exceeded when he came over. He only used 6 minutes in total, and he had yet to reach his limit. The situation at home did not change. After tossing and turning for most of the night, Uncle and Aunt did not know when they had fallen asleep. The house was very quiet. About a kilometer away, on the street of the community, the security guards stationed by the association were guarding the relevant surveillance equipment with bright eyes. However, whether it was the instruments or the security personnel, none of them had any reaction to Luo Nan's mind wandering. It wasn't that they were incompetent. Luo Nan was a target that moved within the polar domain of the Abyss region the moment his soul left his body. Most B-rank powers would be blind even if they came. Luo Nan's soul body resided on the roof of his home. Below him, his peacefully sleeping body was like an enormous whirlpool. It had an instinctive attraction towards soul bodies. Luo Nan didn't go in right away when faced with this kind of attraction. He was a bit hesitant. If he wanted to test the growth of his soul strength, the endurance of his physical body would be a good touchstone. However, there was also a risk. If he couldn't fit it in, it wouldn't be considered a fatal crisis, but he could probably compete for the most hilarious, homeless spot in the history of the association. Bai Xinyan, who had recently been suspended from her job, might be more than happy to stuff him back into the health pot. Luo Nan was dissatisfied with his own indecisiveness. He would be stabbed no matter what. He couldn't avoid it. What was he hesitating for? With a single thought, Luo Nan's soul body sank. His body froze, transforming into endless waves of soul strength. It rushed into the whirlpool formed by his body. It accurately locked onto the external neuron and poured into it in an orderly manner. When the external neuron was filled to the brim, it naturally overflowed, forming the image of an iceberg vast ocean. But with the external neuron as a frame, it wouldn't flood in disorder. And so, the God Gear was formed. The pressure his body endured started from zero and continued to rise. On the bed, Luo Nan's eyelids moved slightly. He maintained a seemingly open state as he experienced the changes in the order frame. The pressure continued to rise like the scouring of a great tide. His God Gear and body gear were like water wheels. They rumbled and spun in the stream of water. Not only did they dissolve the frontal assault, they borrowed the force to transform and nourish the blessed land. It seemed like there was no problem. Luo Nan had been cultivating in the eye's orifice all this time, but the upper limit of what a mere orifice could bear was far from being able to fully utilize the power of the God Gear. He could only protect his lower limit, which was to ensure that the God Gear and Body Gear could mesh with each other and rotate in harmony. He had a lot to fear. But today, his liver energy was unblocked, and his orifice eye was clear to his internal organs. His lower limit had unconsciously increased by an enormous amount. The God Gear and Body Gear meshed and rotated, speeding up the circulation of his blood and energy. His consumption increased dramatically. But under the replenishment of his liver blood, it was like a charge. It nourished and grew, lasting for a long time. And once the Body Gear absorbed too much energy, the internal fire would grow strong, and the liver energy would naturally disperse to the fascia, the fingers, and the eye's orifice. It would accelerate their growth, recuperation, and tempering. Like this, the strength of his body seemed to increase. From this, it seemed that not only was there no problem, but his cultivation speed seemed to have increased. This was absolutely good news. Of course, the increase in his soul strength was still within a controllable range. This was even better news. Luo Nan finally confirmed that the uncontrollable growth of his soul body was just an illusion. But the explosive increase in the range of his mental senses was a fact. He simply flipped over and sat up. He picked up the notebook on the bedside table, flipped to a blank page, and started writing and drawing. According to normal logic, doing the same work would achieve results several times greater than before. The entire process of doing work would naturally be more efficient, and the method of use would be improved. But the current situation was that every link of operation was exactly the same. What should be done was done. The only thing that changed was the soul body itself. But the factor of increment had already been eliminated. What remained was structure? Essence? What was the soul body? What form did the soul body exist in? Such questions far exceeded the scope of Luo Nan's research. Luo Nan had developed dozens of years of inner world research, including thousands of years of history of civilization related to religion, philosophy, and mystic arts. Yet he was unable to come up with a comprehensive explanation that was sufficient to convince everyone. Luo Nan could not solve it. He could only set it aside and draw closer to reality. He needed to seize the moment and make another trip to Gear to verify the use of the external neuron. The external neuron. How do I bring it? Chapter 354. Reality proved Luo Nan's worries. When he used his habitual out-of-body method to pull out his soul body, the external neuron did not react at all. It continued to coil within his brain like a long snake of electricity. It had a calm feeling of, "Who cares where you go? I'm right here." But saying that the external neuron was completely uncontrollable would be an unfair accusation. When Luo Nan used the traditional method, a mere thought caused the external neuron to obediently change locations within his brain. The coiling electricity flickered and flickered, echoing from afar. "See, I knew it wouldn't be easy." Luo Nan made a few strokes on his notebook. The problem still existed, but the concept in his mind grew clearer and clearer. The out-of-body state and the driving of thoughts seemed to be matters on the mental plane, but they weren't. According to the theories he had recently learned, the former was not necessary. The latter was actually a type of guiding energy with thoughts. He described the relationship between several elements in this way. The energy contained in the human body's functions was called vital energy. It flowed through the entire body like water. The external neuron was like a parasitic fish in the water. Luo Nan's thoughts were like a small pebble. His thoughts did not have the power to directly drive the external neuron, but they struck the water and created waves. They were enough to startle the fish, causing the external neuron to make changes. As for why the external neuron was able to accurately judge his thoughts, was it an intelligent judgment? Or was it a more subtle mechanism? Luo Nan was leaning towards the latter. From the looks of it, an interference force must exist on the mental plane and the material plane in order to drive the external neuron. Then I have no choice. Should I reverse the flow of my true energy? Luonan laughed to himself. The most effective method for him to realize interference force was the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, formed from the coupling of the God gear and body gear. Due to the overwhelming superiority of the God gear over the body gear, and due to the guidance of practical problems, Luonan had always exerted force from the mental plane to the material plane. Now, he had to make a great reversal. The order frame of his God gear and body gear coupling allowed him to adjust the direction of application. In theory, there were no obstacles at all. However, the initial operation had to be carried out within his own brain. For the sake of caution, he had a very strict control over the strength of his interference. The light of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered. It no longer shone upon the outside world, nor did it penetrate his internal organs. Instead, it shone with the electric snake of the external neuron within his brain, gradually pouring warmth into it. The external neuron vibrated vigorously, crackling with electricity. It seemed a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes, it coiled and sometimes it stretched out. It was like a transformation of a heavenly dragon. It was marvelous beyond compare. If one did not consider the consequences, it would be like playing with a novel toy. It was very interesting. Luonan noticed that the shape of the neuron in the outside world was changing all the time, but its essential state did not change. It was still the core framework of the divine wheel. The structure of the iceberg ocean was powerful and heavy, yet stable and thick. Luonan had a question. Was the core of the God gear? Luonan didn't have a clear answer, but he had an indescribable comprehension. At least at this moment, the difference between the material and the mental wasn't that clear. He carefully experienced this feeling, strengthening the interference between the mental and material planes. The flame of the heart lantern in the eye's orifice soared, gradually turning into a furnace to burn and refine the real gold that was the external neuron. He not fire. He did not know gear. Luonan had a similar feeling when he followed Jim Master Shio's teachings to refine his life essence. Only by truly doing it could he receive certain information and brand certain imprints. Perhaps this principle could also be applied to the external neuron? In any case, Luonan was immersed in the process of smelting true gold. He completely forgot about the passage of time. Then, the hexa-ear began to push information, vibrating his eardrums and sending a clear notification. A brand new day had begun. Right now it was 4:55 in the morning. According to Luonan's daily routine, it was already time for morning exercises from now on. We're done for. Luonan suddenly woke up with a start. He smacked his head with his notebook. How come it's already this late? Why don't I burn it a little longer? Luonan suppressed the thought just as it arose. It was already time for the morning class. Jim Master Shio had always strictly warned against disrupting the rhythm of the class due to a moment of rashness. He couldn't push it back either. Recently, he had been working and resting strictly according to the plan. The association's security measures were also based on this. Sudden changes would cause trouble for many people. Needless to say, his plan to explore gear a second time came to a premature end. Luonan couldn't help but feel depressed. He could only suppress his impulses and adjust his mind. He used his morning meditation to guide and sort out his weed-like emotions. After stumbling for a few minutes, the powerful force of inertia pushed him back on the right track. Luonan had 40 minutes of morning classes and a morning run that was several times the time. Luonan returned at 7. As usual, his uncle had already prepared breakfast and was waiting for him to start eating. In the living room, his aunt was fiddling with her wristband with her head down. She had put on some makeup, but she didn't look lethargic because she hadn't slept for half a night. When he saw Luonan return, he used his chin to point at Luonan. Your uncle has something to do today, so he'll be leaving a bit earlier. Keep up with the pace. Luonan responded. He couldn't help but ponder in his mind. How could he make his aunt and uncle feel at ease? They might have to trouble Secretary He for this. He went upstairs to wash up. When he reached the staircase, Mo Peng came over with a yawn. When he saw him, he gave a sleepy yawn and went downstairs. Mo Peng just brushed past Luonan when he thought of something. He let out a sigh and grabbed Luo Nan's shoulder. But when her palm cut across, her fingertips didn't even touch Luo Nan's clothes. Instead, she nearly pinched Luo Nan's shoulder. "Why are you running so fast?" Mo Peng complained loudly. "It's because you're too fat." Luo Nan turned his head. Right now, his physical skills were still mediocre. They were worlds apart from Xue Lei and Crag Burst, who had strengthened their fleshly bodies. But he had the support of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. A little fatty like Mo Peng, who lacked training, really shouldn't even think about getting close to Luo Nan. Mo Peng used his thick finger to poke Luo Nan. "Fine. You like the new and get tired of the old. You live off me while helping outsiders. You're just like this. It's a shame that I thought of you when I had good things to do." Luo Nan rolled his eyes at him and walked into the house. "You're going too far. You hook up with that Leister every day. Why don't you think about how long it's been since we brothers got together?" Luo Nan had already entered the bedroom. He spoke casually. "I'm at Acumen College. You're at 6th High. If you want to hook up with me, then skip class and come over." Mo Peng gave a thumbs up. "Brother, you're a god in calculations." Luo Nan finally looked him straight in the eye. "You skip class?" "Quiet, quiet." Mo Peng jumped in fright. It must be known that his great mother was in the living room. He pushed Luo Nan inside. He originally wanted to talk about business, but when he saw the clean appearance of Luo Nan's bedroom, he could not help but ridicule. Perfectionist obsessive-compulsive disorder. Sure. Luo Nan was ready to kick this guy out. Mo Peng shrunk back. "Let's talk business. Let's talk business. Have you received the compensation from Frost River Reality yet?" It was last time in the city center. That mess happened. After that, they gave every customer who was present a member promotion compensation. Those who aren't members have membership. Those who were originally members have all been promoted by 1 level. In addition, they also gave luxurious gift bags and whatnot. Have you received it yet? From Luo Nan's perspective, Frost River Reality did not represent any beautiful memories. He entered the bathroom to adjust the water temperature. He casually responded, "So what?" "So what? After a member gets promoted, their expenses will drop by at least 20%, okay? And they also give out coupons. If you reach 1,000, you get 800. Adding them together, it's almost free. It's most suitable for group activities." Luo Nan sneered, "Go if you have the guts. If you go to the police station again, just don't look for me." "The one in the city center. I'm definitely not in the mood. But near your school is the Cloud City Water Village. Didn't they open a branch recently? They claim to have the best equipment in the city. Brother, here's your chance to show off." Hey, what are you doing?" "Taking a shower. Clear the place." Luo Nan pushed Mo Peng outside. With his current strength, he could easily crush this sturdy brother of his. He directly pushed him out the door. Mo Peng still wanted to persuade him, "You do this every day. You run in the morning and you train. Even if you build a body of muscles, what's the use? You still need to go the social route. Only then will you have a chance to show off. Don't you understand? This is a get-together. I guarantee that I'll bring high-quality beauties from 6th High. You can't lose face to the Mo family and the Luo family. At the very least, you have to be equal. Let's talk about it when you can actually hook up. I'm in a hurry. Listen to me, brother. You don't have any friends. Mother will definitely be a million times worried about you. You'll be a mama's baby for life. Oh, an aunt's baby. Hey, think about that house in Blue Bay. You want it to just sit there and eat dust?" Luo Nan always wanted to live alone. This wasn't a secret in his family. But the earthquake in September and the consecutive hospital visits last month had ruined his hopes. But Mo Peng didn't know that the main reason Luo Nan wished to be alone was to secretly make drugs. Right now, he no longer had the motivation to do so. Plus, he had offended more and more powers in succession. Even Luo Nan himself didn't know whether it was better to move out and attract firepower or to take care of his family nearby. Thinking too much about this sort of thing was really annoying. Luo Nan directly closed the door. He ignored Mo Peng's clamor outside and entered the bathroom to take a shower. Just as he stood under the shower head, The Hexa suddenly transmitted a message. The sender was Zhang Yingyi. The message was very short. There were only 2 sentences: be a bit more proactive. Don't let people look down on you. This message came out of nowhere. Luo Nan typed a question mark to reply, but the other party didn't reply. It seemed that she was still brooding over his words from yesterday. Luckily, there was a document attached to the message. Luo Nan took a hot shower as he browsed. This was an internal report Peony had given to the firm. It was undoubtedly related to the search for mutants. It could be seen that Peony had a more comprehensive grasp of the entire situation after a night of brewing. She had already proposed an extremely feasible plan of action. Luo Nan believed that he was unable to come up with this sort of plan. But this report was different from the one he had shared with the cloud space yesterday. This report was for the high-level members of the firm to read. Some of its contents were more sensitive. Chapter 355. At 7:15, Luo Nan hurriedly ate a few mouthfuls of rice. He took the pie and the cup of milk that his aunt had forced onto him and sat in his uncle's SUV. He displayed the extraordinary strength of a glutton. The car hadn't even driven out of the community when he finished eating the second half of his breakfast. He opened the car window and accurately threw the empty paper cup into the trash can on the roadside. His level of moving target practice was far beyond that of most people. Uncle Mo Haihang shot a glance at him and closed the car window. "You're not guessing, right?" "How could that be? I didn't train in martial arts for nothing." Luo Nan still clearly remembered the scene of the 2 elders racking their brains at the head of the bed in the wee hours of the morning. He felt ashamed and subconsciously jested. "Look at my skill and accuracy. Uncle, take me to play with guns someday. I've forgotten where the doors of the shooting center face in the past few years." "Sure. It's rare for you to ask." Mo Haihang straightforwardly agreed. Then he seemed to ask casually, "How have you been at school recently? I mean, have your social circles gotten a bit bigger?" Luo Nan felt that his uncle's words had a deeper meaning. He responded with a few words, but he was worried that he would be too vague. It would be hard to gain the trust of others. He just so happened to have a matter on hand, so he changed his tone and spoke. He was also asking for guidance. "Uncle, how do I cooperate with others? I recently had a club activity, so I formed a temporary team to do things together. I don't really understand how to do things properly." Mo Haihang answered as he drove. "Since it's a team, you need to understand your role in the team. You need to be the leader or the planner. You need to know your place as a technician or logistics." This answer was too perfunctory. Luo Nan wasn't very satisfied. "This is from the standpoint of a team." "That's right. Since it's a cooperation, of course we need to talk about the team." Luo Nan rolled his eyes. "I want to work from a personal perspective. I want to know how to be respected in a team." Mo Haihang looked at the road and didn't look at Luo Nan. He laughed and answered, "The concept of respect is too vague. There's no universal standard. Everyone's role is different. Their expressions of respect will be different as well. A fellow who considers himself a leader may respect his subordinates as praise. But if the person he praises doesn't consider himself a subordinate, will he feel respected?" "That's true. So, if the environment is not formed, don't talk about the relationship in the environment. It can change at any time. For example, respect can be a reward, but it can also be a price. That temporary team of yours, we'll talk about it after it becomes a qualified team." Talking with an intellectual like his uncle was far too taxing on his brain cells. Luo Nan first shrank back. He half closed his eyes and looked again at Peony's evaluation in the internal report. Crow's professional level is unknown, and his initial judgment is that he's introverted. He's not good at communication and lacks initiative. It might be more appropriate to classify him as a support. There might be room for negotiation in future collaborations. This was his partner. The official operation hadn't even started yet, but she was already trying to seize power. What was even worse was that she was trying to bargain. Luo Nan admired Peony's eyesight and judgment, But this attitude inevitably made him feel uncomfortable. It also made him doubt Peony's structure. One had to know that this outsourcing was actually a compensation from Her Majesty the Martial Empress. No matter what, she would not discount it. Peony's words instead proved that her position in the firm was relatively ordinary. She hadn't felt the boss's pulse. Wait a minute, this isn't like Peony's style. Luo Nan picked at her words and suddenly realized something. The so-called bargaining might not be to cut off the amount of money for the outsourcing. Instead, it was to settle down on future solicitations. If this was the case, then it was quite brilliant. At the very least, she could understand part of Her Majesty the Martial Empress's intentions. Luo Nan still had to ask Yuan before he obtained an answer. Luo Nan felt mentally exhausted to be on the same team as this kind of person and to seize the upper hand. Mo Haihang took the initiative to talk to him at this time. I have a general idea of what you're thinking. You feel that you need to have a goal or a paradigm when doing things. If you really don't know what to do, then learn from me. I feel that we are quite similar. See if we're suited to each other. Luo Nan immediately teared up. I was waiting for you to say this. I have a motto. Take a look. Mo Haihang sent him a message. It was very short, only 8 words. Those who set up don't set up. Those who cross over don't do. Luo Nan was stunned. He had read the classics as a child, and he had recently followed Gym Master Xiao to learn classical martial arts. He had crammed in some relevant knowledge, and he recognized these words from the sacred text of Taoism. These 2 lines said that if one stands on tiptoe for the sake of looking into the distance, one will not be able to stand steadily. If one takes large strides for the sake of speed, one will not be able to walk very far. After these 2 lines, there was another line. Those who see themselves do not understand. Those who are self-righteous do not reveal themselves. Those who cut themselves down have no merit. Those who are self-conceited do not grow. And so on and so forth. The general meaning was that one cannot rely on frivolous and impetuous behavior. The deeper meaning was that one must retreat in order to advance. Well, this was indeed a style of doing things. It was quite compatible with his uncle's usual low-key words and actions. But the current situation was not like this. Mo Haihang did not know that Luo Nan was entangled in his heart. He asked, Do you understand? I understand. Uncle, is there anything else? There is. For example, good deeds leave no trace. Good words leave no flaw. I know. Then there's also, to know the male, to guard the female, to be the stream of the world. To know the white, to guard the black, to be the style of the world. To be the style of the world, to be eternally virtuous, to return to the limitless. Simplicity is a tool. The sage uses it as a commander. Therefore, the great system cannot be cut. Luo Nan was scared. He simply memorized the entire passage in one breath. There were at least 80 similar sentences in the Book of Taoism, if not 100. But this was really not what he needed. Mo Haihang laughed loudly. You clearly know what you want to do. Why do you need to ask me? Luo Nan knew that he had been played. He was left speechless for a time. Actually, he wasn't interested in any kind of method. He didn't need to suppress others. If he had a choice, he would quietly stay in a corner and refine his external neuron. He would carefully experience this process and see what kind of result he would obtain in the end. However, he needed to do some things in order to obtain this peace. This entanglement was not something that could be explained to outsiders. Mo Haihang used his finger to draw circles on his temple. Let me guess what you're thinking about. You want to do something, but you don't know if you can do it. So you want to find a successful paradigm, like a set of formulas. You want to throw all sorts of parameters into it and then you'll succeed? Luo Nan made a sound. Just for reference. Mo Haihang nodded. He then shook his head and sighed. Nan, how old are you this year? 16. What a good age. When I was 16 years old, I knocked up a classmate's belly. My old man kicked me down the stairs. My mouth was broken from the fall. Damn, this gossip. Luo Nan's chin smashed against his chest. He didn't close his mouth for a long time. Mo Haihong's gaze was fixed in front of him. He smiled gently, as if he was recalling a youth that would never return. But in the end, his gaze was still on Luo Nan's body. It seems that I haven't beaten you since you were 10 years old, right? It seems so. A child in his teens. Second puberty, and rebellious phase. What a wonderful period. You actually passed by just like that? Uncle, are you very disappointed that you didn't get the chance to beat me? While Luo Nan was secretly ridiculing, new words poured into Luo Nan's ears. Tell me, should I praise you for being mature for your age? Or should I worry that there are problems with your physical and mental development? Luo Nan raised his head in surprise. He met Mo Haihong's clear and cold gaze. He realized the serious attitude within. Humans have never been perfect creatures. The evolutionary history of this species is a history of trial and error. At most, they have decent luck. So, society is very cruel, but it always leaves some room for trial and error. This is especially true for young people. Your grandfather's societal format chart only lists students. There is a group of people who pay tuition fees within it. His uncle's words had a scholarly seriousness to them. Luo Nan was a bit flustered. He didn't know what attitude he should use to respond. In the end, he could only respond with grunts. Mo Haihong seemed to be interrogating him. Then Nan, you tell me, why are you so stingy with your tuition fees? Are you prepared to press down on all the flaws and then lose everything in an even crueler stage? Luo Nan didn't even have the strength to respond with grunts. He felt that his uncle today was completely different from usual. Perhaps last night's matter made his uncle think a bit more. Was his uncle probing his attitude right now? Luo Nan really wanted to say that it was a misunderstanding. There wasn't some inexplicable organization looking for him. But if he thought about it a bit more, the nature of the situation he was facing was more or less the same. Wasn't this a problem caused by Her Majesty Empress Wu's group of people? His mind spun a few times, and he finally came up with words with great difficulty. So you're saying that I have to feel the stones and cross the river? You're saying that I have to fall down a few times? You guys are Uncle Wolf and Aunt Eagle, okay? Come on, I know that you don't like student activities, Uncle. Luo Nan did his best to disturb the atmosphere. He muttered, know the male and know the female. Know the white and know the black. Know the honor and know the disgrace. Suffering losses is a blessing. I know how to carry, okay? Mo Haihong looked at him calmly. In the end, he washed away all of his solemn and cold aura. He returned to his normal state and smiled. I hope so. All right. You need to keep your mouth shut about the matter I just told you. You don't really want me to beat you up, right? Luo Nan blinked. If you don't say it, then I need to have the courage to pay the tuition fees. Mo Haihong really did slap Luo Nan's ear. Of course, he didn't use any strength. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to slap Luo Nan, who had the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The interior of the car became lively. The autopilot system displayed its proper function. Luo Nan knew that some things had truly become different amidst the laughter. He needed to get used to this change. The car hadn't yet arrived at Acumen College. Far away in a certain park in the River Wu district, an enormous crow flapped its wings and took flight. It flew along the city's riverside greenery at a low altitude. The rubber band tied to the crow's leg vibrated slightly, transmitting real-time information to the crow. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.